Chapter 3559. Severe Injury to Red Eye Swish. Jian Wushuang's figure disappeared into thin air. When he reappeared, he was already behind Red Eye Master. At the same time, a brand new sword mark appeared on the Supreme Treasure armor on Red Eye Master's body. The Peerless Sword Manual was a moment of life and death. The Red Eye Master was a little confused. She had just been severely injured by Jian Wushuang's sword and lost more than 30% of her divine power. Before she could react, Jian Wushuang had slashed her again, and the power of this sword was still extraordinary. The Peerless Sword Manual, 9th Heaven of Illusionary Sword. Jian Wushuang's killing intent sword. The shadow sword in his hand turned into purple lightning in an instant, and sword lights instantly enveloped the Red Eye Master. No! Shiyan, save me! The Red Eye Master screamed hysterically. Not far away, Shiyan Master had just arrived when he saw Jian Wushuang rushing toward the Red Eye Master. However, he did not expect Jian Wushuang to be so fast and decisive. When he came to the side of the Red Eye Master, Jian Wushuang had already slashed out 5 times with his 9th Firmament Illusionary Sword. Get lost! Shiyan Master roared, and the huge axe surrounded by raging fire rushed toward Jian Wushuang. The terrifying aura completely suppressed Jian Wushuang, making it impossible for him to strike out with the remaining 4 strikes. Retreat! Jian Wushuang pushed back without hesitation and dodged Shiyan Master's strike. Then Jian Wushuang glanced at Shiyan Master and sighed softly, "It's a pity that I didn't kill her directly. But it's time to teach them a lesson. It's time to leave." Jian Wushuang did not linger and turned to leave. Due to the concern for Red Eye Master, Shiyan Master did not chase after him. She could only watch as Jian Wushuang disappeared from his sight. "Red Eye, are you okay?" Shiyan Master asked. At this moment, Red Eye Master still looked fearful. She only let out a long sigh after Jian Wushuang had completely left. "I lost nearly 70% of my divine power. Fortunately, you came in time. Otherwise, I would have been killed by Blood Sword Master." She was telling the truth. She did not want to fight head-on. Faced with Jian Wushuang's terrifying swordsmanship, she was helpless and could only take the beating passively. The key point was that Jian Wushuang's strength had been too terrifying. In just a moment, he had destroyed nearly 70% of her divine power. If Stone Loathe Master had been a little slower, her life would have been in danger. "What happened to Blood Sword Master?" Shiyan Master asked. "I don't know. It is said that his battle strength is only at the initial stage of the 6th realm. Because he knows a special escape technique and has a time-space type true treasure, his life-saving ability is a little stronger. But when he attacked me just now, his strength was definitely at the pinnacle of the 6th realm." Red Eye Master's eyes were cold. "There's another point. He was able to withstand my soul attack without being affected at all? How is that possible?" Shiyan Master frowned. "Even I don't dare to ignore your soul attack, especially your soul attack. It's one of your killing moves and I have to go all out to deal with it. How can he not be affected at all?" "I don't know," Red Eye Master said. "But there is one possibility. He has a soul defense true treasure, and to completely ignore my soul attack, a normal soul defense true treasure can't do it. At the very least, it has to be a top-tier universe true treasure, or even a top-tier universe true treasure." "A top-tier soul defense true treasure or a top-tier universe true treasure?" Shiyan Master widened his eyes. In the universe true treasures had different values due to their different uses. True treasure armors were much more valuable than ordinary attack true treasures, and domain type and spacetime type valuables of the same level were naturally more valuable than true treasure armors. As for soul type true treasures, they were far more valuable than true treasure armors. A soul defending universe true treasure at the top tier level would not be less valuable than a top tier universe true treasure. If it was a top tier soul defending universe true treasure, its value would be even more shocking, and it would definitely attract countless great beings to fight over it. "It seems that we have all underestimated this Blood Sword Master," Shiyan Master said with a serious expression. "Although it is rumored that he only has the power of a low-level 6th-level true treasure, it is very clear that he has hidden quite a bit of his power, or rather he has hidden some trump cards. At the very least, he has the power of a peak 6th-level true treasure within a short period of time. In addition, he has a soul defense true treasure that is at least a top-tier true treasure. Therefore, he did not choose to continue fleeing just now. Instead, he directly turned around and attacked us. If I'm not wrong, he must have intentionally fought with me before. Moreover, he had deliberately found the right spot. After he collided with me, he used the rebound force to get close to you at the fastest speed. After that, he instantly unleashed his trump card and attacked you. He had guessed that your soul attack would not be of much use to him. However, as long as he got close to you and instantly unleashed his strongest strength, he would have a chance to kill you. Just as he expected, he severely injured you. Well, it seems that Blood Sword Master has hidden himself well. Red Eye Master narrowed his eyes slightly. They had already determined that Jian Wushuang had hidden his strength or means. Moreover, they also believed that Jian Wushuang must have a soul defense true treasure above superior grade. At the same time, they also understood that Jian Wushuang's attack just now was deliberately planned and calculated. His purpose was probably to kill the Red Eye Master. Even if he could not kill him, he could at least severely injure the Red Eye Master. It could be considered as venting his anger. As for Shiyan Master, Jian Wushuang did not have any thoughts about it. A cunning guy. I almost fell and injured him again. The Red Eye Master's eyes were cold and he looked like he was gnashing his teeth. Red Eye, don't worry. We won't let today's matter go, Shiyan Master said. Besides, this Bloodsword Master doesn't only have a high-level space-time universe that I need, but he also has a soul defense true treasure at the lowest level, which is at the top-tier level. With these two precious true treasures, it's worth our North Sea Palace taking action. You mean? Red Eye Master immediately looked at Shiyan Master. Shiyan Master smiled coldly. I will report this matter and our speculations. After that, North Sea Palace will deal with him and seize his true treasure. We just need to wait for the news. Okay. Red Eye Master nodded slightly. Chapter 3560. Unexplored area. Jian Wushuang stopped in the Nine Twists Demon Cave. My strength is still too weak. Even if I use the heaven-cleaving skill, my battle strength is only at the pinnacle of the 6th realm. If I was stronger, I could have killed the Red Eye Master just now, Jian Wushuang thought. Yes, his target from the very beginning was Red Eye Master. As for Shiyan Master, he was well aware of his strength. He could not pose any threat to Shiyan Master, but Red Eye Master was different. Red Eye Master's soul skills were indeed impressive, but his ability to fight head-on was too weak. Apart from the illusion, ordinary soul attacks and soul-crushing attacks had no effect on him. As long as he could get close to the Red Eye Master, he indeed had a chance to kill him. It was precisely because of this that he was able to rely on the rebound force formed from his battle with the Shiyan Master to get close to the Red Eye Master. But unfortunately he was still a little lacking in the end. This Shiyan Master and the Red Eye Master both come from the North Sea Palace, and the North Sea Palace is definitely one of the top 3 great forces in this territory. It is said that there are 4 ruler realm experts, far beyond what our Star Palace can compare to. Because the North Sea Palace is strong, the experts of the North Sea Palace are very arrogant. When they were adventuring in the 3 universe battlefields, they were very overbearing. However, Master Stone Loathsome and Red Eye Master have suffered a great loss in my hands. With their usual style of doing things, I'm afraid they won't let this matter go, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He had almost killed the Red Eye Master, so it would be strange for them to give up in front of the Shiyan Master. I'm not afraid of these 2 alone, but the North Sea Palace behind them. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and shrugged. I had planned to explore the Nine Twists Demon Cave for a while and then go to the special spacetime that I found in the Shui Bay. But now it seems that I have to give up. Jian Wushuang had made up his mind and immediately flew out of the Nine Twists Demon Cave along the star map. The Devil's Smoke Valley was too big. Even though Jian Wushuang was traveling at full speed, it still took him 3 years to leave the area of the Nine Twists Demon Cave. After that, it took him another 16 years. Only then did Jian Wushuang come to the unexplored area at the core of the Devil's Smoke Valley. As the name implied, the unexplored area was a place that had never been explored before. Only a small part of the Great Devil's Smoke Valley had been explored, and most of the places belonged to the unexplored area. Most of the territory at the core of Devil's Smoke Valley also belonged to the unexplored area. Over the years, experts from various forces in the various star worlds in this territory would often go to these unexplored areas to explore. However, because they did not know what was ahead and what they would encounter, it was naturally extremely dangerous. However, there were more opportunities in these unexplored areas. Dark Cyan, a precipice that is over 100,000 feet tall. It should be here. Jian Wushuang looked at the precipice in front of him. This precipice was 100,000 feet tall and its entire body was dark cyan. In the middle of the precipice there was a small gap. The gap was very narrow, but it was enough for a cultivator to pass through. Shui Bei entered the unknown region through the gap in the middle of the cliff. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and carefully looked at the star map left by Shui Bei. After confirming that the cliff in front of him was the place Shui Bei had mentioned, he immediately moved toward the gap in the middle of the cliff. When he entered the crack in the cliff, 2 principals masters happened to pass by and saw Jian Wushuang. Who is that person? How could he choose to enter the unknown region from there? One of the principal's masters, who was wearing a red robe, asked curiously. He looks like the Bloodsword Master who just rose up not long ago. I heard that he appeared in the Nine Twists Demon Cave. I didn't expect that he would come here again and go directly into the unknown region. The other elder with a child's face and white hair also stared at Jian Wushuang. Thanks. This Bloodsword Master is quite bold. The unknown region is full of dangers, and most of the dangers are unpredictable. Can be said that life and death are purely dependent on luck. How long has it been since he came to the universe battlefield? Isn't he a bit too eager to go directly into the unknown region? The principal's master said in a red robe. Who knows? However, those who dare to venture into the unexplored regions are usually desperados. Many people are forced to go into the unexplored regions to search for great opportunities. For example, many people who are stuck at the same level and unable to break through for a long time can only enter the unexplored regions to gamble for a tiny chance of breaking through. Who knows, they might find great opportunities there and break through, said the elder with a youthful face and white hair. Haha, how can it be so easy to find such great opportunities? In any case, you and I don't have that much pressure. There's no need for us to gamble our lives there. The red-robed principal's master laughed. What the two of them were talking about was actually the understanding of the experts from the various powers in the various astral realms toward the unexplored regions. Within the three great battlefields, the unexplored regions were filled with great opportunities, but they were also filled with even more dangers. Even a ruler realm expert roaming within the unexplored regions would die if he wasn't careful, much less an ordinary principal's master. Therefore, very few people dared to venture into the unexplored regions within this territory. At the very least, those experts who had lived a comfortable life would not venture into the unexplored regions. There were only some who had no attachments or had reached a bottleneck in their strength and were unable to break through even after a long period of time. In order to find a chance to break through, they ventured into the unexplored regions. In addition, some people who were forced by their enemies had no choice but to try their luck in the unknown region. After all, the risks in the unknown region were too great. Because of this, when they saw Jian Wushuang entering the unknown region to explore, they said that Jian Wushuang was brave. However, they did not know that Jian Wushuang was not the kind of person who was impatient to live or could not improve his strength and could only try his luck in the unknown region. On the contrary, he had unlimited possibilities and his strength had been improving. However, the reason why he entered the unknown region was because Shui Bei had already paved the way for him. As long as he followed the star map left by Shui Bei, he could find the special spacetime. According to Shui Bei, the special spacetime definitely contained an incredible opportunity. Jian Wushuang had to go to such a place. Chapter 3561. Special time and space. After passing through the crack in the precipice, Jian Wushuang had completely stepped into the unknown region. What entered his eyes was still a dark and boundless land, with a faint black smoke floating in the void. It did not look much different from other places. In fact, from the moment Jian Wushuang set foot in the unexplored area, he knew nothing except for a route marked on the star map from Shui Bei. As the saying went, the unknown was dangerous. The areas explored in the Devil Smoke Valley had many dangerous places such as the Corpse Cave, the Death Hurricane Eye, and the Devil Flame Land, all of which were famous for their savagery. Even a ruler realm expert would have a slim chance of survival if he stepped into them. However, although these places were dangerous, they were known areas after all. The experts from various star worlds and forces knew that they would definitely die if they entered these places, so they naturally avoided them from afar. They would not step into them at all. However, the unknown areas were completely different. There was no way to know where the danger was. In other words, if you simply rushed forward, you would unknowingly step into some certain death places. This unknown region is too dangerous. I must completely follow the path Shui Bei pointed out. I must not deviate. Once I deviate, I may encounter unknown dangers. Jian Wushuang's expression was solemn. After entering the unknown region, his nerves were completely tensed and he became fully alert. Under this full alert, he also followed the path Shui Bei pointed out and slowly moved forward. His speed was very slow, even slower than the speed of an ordinary principal's master. There was nothing he could do because although Shui Bei had left a route, it was only a rough direction. There was no complete star map, so he naturally had to carefully find the right direction to move forward. If he did not pay attention to the direction while moving forward, even if it was just a small deviation, it could make him completely lost. Fortunately, Jian Wushuang was careful and achieved results. After a long 10 years, he finally came to a dark abyss. The dark abyss is here. Jian Wushuang stood in the void and looked down at the abyss. The abyss was pitch black and bottomless, but if one looked carefully, they would find a slowly flowing dark vortex in the center of the abyss. The dark vortex was not big and its color was not deep. It was difficult to find it in the surrounding darkness. Master Shuebei had come here by chance and stayed for a period of time before he discovered the existence of the dark vortex. What Jian Wushuang was looking for was this dark vortex. According to what Shuebei said, this dark vortex is the passage to enter that special space-time. Jian Wushuang's face was solemn. He stared at the dark vortex in the abyss, took a deep breath and then jumped down. Whoosh! Ear-piercing sounds continued to ring out. Jian Wushuang's eyes were cold as he fixed his gaze on the dark vortex. After a while he directly flew into the dark vortex. When Jian Wushuang flew into the dark vortex, it was like a drop of water dropping into the sea. There was no fluctuation from the dark vortex and the dark vortex was still slowly rotating in the middle of the abyss as always, it was the same. After entering the dark vortex, Jian Wushuang came to the special space-time. It was a gray void, vast and boundless. There was no light and there was no sky or earth. There was only a void. As Jian Wushuang stood there, he immediately sensed the difference between this space-time and the outside world. It's just as Shuebei said. I can't sense the power of space-time at all here, and my connection with the outside world will be completely cut off. Jian Wushuang looked around and tried to contact the people outside, but there was no response. A completely independent space-time is completely different from the outside world, Jian Wushuang murmured. Not only that, but Jian Wushuang also sensed an extremely obscure crisis in this space-time. This sense of crisis had been present since he stepped into this space-time, which was also mentioned by Shuebei in the star map. According to Shuebei, after he entered this space-time, he immediately felt a sense of danger. As he continued to move forward, the sense of danger grew stronger. Later he vaguely saw a floating platform, but because he saw that platform, the sense of danger in his heart rose to the extreme, as if he would die at the next moment. Therefore he didn't have time to see what was on the platform before he turned around and left. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. Shuebei had indeed paved the way for him, but this path only led to the high platform. As for what happened next, Shuebei did not know. When I came to the core area of Devil Smoke Valley and entered this special space, I had the battle strength of the peak of the fifth realm. He didn't even see what was on the high platform and left in fear. But now, my strength is much higher than Shuebei's and my life-saving ability is much stronger than his. I should be able to see more things in this special space than him, Jian Wushuang muttered. In the next moment, Jian Wushuang slowly moved forward. As Shuebei had said, as Jian Wushuang slowly moved forward, the sense of crisis in his heart grew stronger. However, this level of crisis naturally did not scare Jian Wushuang. He continued to move forward as usual. In the gray void, Jian Wushuang did not know how far he had walked or how long he had walked. He only knew that the sense of crisis in his heart was growing stronger, and he was getting closer and closer to the high platform. But at this moment, Jian Wushuang's expression suddenly changed. He saw a golden light in the gray void in front of him. Yes, it was a golden light. Although the golden light was dim and not as dazzling, it was still very eye-catching in the gray void. What is that golden light? With a trace of curiosity, Jian Wushuang rushed toward the golden light. However, when he approached the golden light and finally saw it clearly, he was stunned. The golden light was nothing else but a golden long spear. A long spear? There is such a spear floating in this special space and time? Jian Wushuang frowned and walked to the side of the golden long spear. After carefully observing the golden long spear, he reached out his hand and grabbed it. Chapter 3562. The corpse on the high platform. The moment Jian Wushuang's palm touched the golden spear, an extremely powerful aura of a supreme true treasure instantly burst out. This aura is a top-tier universe true treasure? Jian Wushuang's face was full of astonishment. A top-tier universe true treasure was a treasure that many principles masters coveted. It was rare to see it in the 3 battlefields, and it was very difficult to see it in the world. For example, Jian Wushuang had been lucky enough to get a top-tier universe true treasure axe in 9 Twist Demon Cave. But now he had not encountered anything in this special space, nor had he reached the high platform mentioned in the star map by Shuebei. Just on the way, he had found a spear of a top-tier universe true treasure? Moreover, when he had obtained the top-tier universe true treasure axe in the 9 Twist Demon Cave, he had spent a lot of effort to kill that demon. But now he did not spend any effort here. This spear is indeed a top-tier universe true treasure, but how could such a top-tier universe true treasure just float in this space-time casually? Jian Wushuang could not help clenching his hands. At the same time, he remembered that Shuebei had said that the Bodhi world was a treasure he had obtained in this special spacetime. Now it seemed that Shuebei had also discovered the existence of the Bodhi world when he was wandering in this gray void. It's not surprising that this gray void should only be the edge of this special spacetime. The opportunities here should be the least, but even so, I still found a top-tier universe supreme treasure. I really don't know how many opportunities there are in this special spacetime. Jian Wushuang praised. After putting the golden spear into his interspatial ring, he collected his emotions and continued to fly forward. After a few days, Jian Wushuang could finally see the floating high platform in front of him. That should be the high platform that Shuebei saw. If I'm not mistaken, Shuebei must have turned around and left here. Jian Wushuang stopped and looked up. He could vaguely see the existence of a high platform. The high platform should still be some distance away from him. Because of the obstruction of his vision, he could not see what was on the high platform. However, the moment he could vaguely see the high platform, the sense of crisis in his body instantly rose to a whole new level. This sense of crisis was too strong. It was only because he was stronger and more confident in his ability to survive. Shuebei did not have his ability, so he did not dare to continue walking. Instead, he turned around and left. The judgment of Shuebei is right. There should be a great opportunity in the high platform, but it should also be accompanied by great danger. He was only at the peak of the 5 states at that time. If he continued to walk blindly, he might not be able to get down, Jian Wushuang thought. Even he was a little hesitant after feeling the strong sense of danger. But soon his expression became firm. I had already expected the danger here. Since I dared to come here, I must have mentally prepared myself. Moreover, although the sense of danger is very strong, it's not so strong that I don't dare to move forward. After making up his mind, Jian Wushuang continued to move forward. As he continued to move forward, the sense of danger he sensed became stronger and stronger, and Jian Wushuang's expression became more and more solemn. Finally, he came to the front of the high platform, and at the same time he could finally see the things on the high platform clearly. That is, Jian Wushuang looked at the high platform in front of him. The high platform was not very big and there were no buildings on it. It was almost an empty space, but there were human-shaped statues around the empty space. These statues were lifelike and looked like real people. At a glance, there were a total of 18 statues. They stood neatly on the 4 sides of the high platform, facing the center of the high platform. It was as if they were guarding something. In the center of the high platform, there was a purple-haired elder sitting cross-legged. The purple-haired elder wore a blood-red armor and held a dark green long stick in his hand. He was sitting cross-legged with his head lowered, but he was no longer breathing. Jian Wushuang's soul power swept over him. He did not sense any life fluctuation from the purple-haired elder. This man must have died many years ago, Jian Wushuang thought. The purple-haired old man was indeed dead. However, because of his incredible strength, his divine body was still intact even though he was dead. Not only his divine body, but also the blood-red armor and the dark green long stick in his hand. Jian Wushuang's soul power swept toward the armor and the long stick. However, he could not sense the specific power of the blood-red armor and the dark green long stick. I can't sense it with just my soul power. I can't know the level of the armor and the long stick unless I'm really close to them, Jian Wushuang murmured. If it were any other place or any other cultivator, they would definitely rush up and take the scarlet armor and the dark cyan long stick left by the purple-haired elder without hesitation. However, Jian Wushuang was not so impulsive. After all, this spacetime gave him a strong sense of danger. Especially now, in front of the high platform, the sense of danger was even more terrifying. It was as if he approached the high platform he would immediately suffer a disaster. Therefore, even though he knew that the purple-haired old man's armor and the dark cyan long rod were universe supreme treasures of an extremely high level, he did not rush to the high platform immediately. Instead, he carefully studied the high platform. There are no buildings on the high platform and I can't sense any restrictions or magic arrays. If there really is a great danger, then it's most likely the human-shaped statues around the high platform. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He looked at the human-shaped statues. The human-shaped statues looked ordinary, but they were like guards. Although they did not have any vitality, they did not emit any power. However, Jian Wushuang still felt that these statues were extraordinary. There were many dangers on the high platform, and they were most likely on these human-shaped statues. After understanding this, Jian Wushuang began to ponder. Chapter 3563, Star Thunder Ruler. These human-shaped statues are obviously the guards of this high platform. It's fine if I don't go near the high platform, but once I get close to the high platform, these human-shaped statues will probably wake up and kill me. The trouble is that I don't know the strength of these human-shaped statues. Jian Wushuang understood that the 3 battlefields in this territory were not formed naturally, but probably came from the depths of the universe. In the depths of the universe, experts were as numerous as clouds. There were many Overlord-level experts and their methods were earth-shaking. The battlefields they left behind were filled with too many unknowns. In Jian Wushuang's opinion, these human-shaped statues on the high platform might be the battle strength of a principal's master, but they might also be the battle strength of a ruler realm expert. If they were only the battle strength of a principal's master, then it would be fine. Even if they were all at the pinnacle of the 6th realm, he still had a chance to protect himself. However, if all the human-shaped statues had the battle strength of a ruler, then he would be courting death. If he rushed forward, it would be no different from courting death. But I've come here with great difficulty, and the opportunity is right in front of me. I can't just turn around and leave like Shuebe. Jian Wushuang frowned and thought for a while. In the end, Jian Wushuang could only think of a way to neutralize the situation. I must get close to the high platform, but I don't need to be anxious. I'll try to get close first and see the reaction of these human-shaped statues. Even if they wake up, they can't rush to my side all at once. I can try to fight with them first and figure out their strength. If they are far beyond me and I can't fight them, I will escape immediately. As long as I don't go too deep, I can still escape from the edge of the high platform. Jian Wushuang made up his mind. He carefully approached the high platform in front of him. As he slowly approached the high platform, he focused his attention on the reactions of the human-shaped sculptures on the high platform and was ready to escape at any time. However, to his surprise, he was still extremely close to the high platform. However, the human-shaped sculptures on the high platform still did not have the slightest reaction. Even though he had half a foot on the high platform, the human-shaped sculptures still did not move at all. What's going on? Am I thinking too much? Are these human-shaped sculptures not dangerous? Jian Wushuang frowned. He was also full of doubts, but now he was completely standing on the high platform. Although he was at the edge of the high platform, those human-shaped sculptures should be able to wake up. But in fact, there was still no movement from those human-shaped sculptures. Let's not worry about that for now. Let's get the blood-red armor and the long stick first. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He took another step and slowly walked toward the corpse of the purple-haired elder in the center of the high platform. 1 step, 2 steps, Jian Wushuang had already appeared in front of the human-shaped sculptures. Even when he was close to the center of the platform, the sculptures still did not move. In the end, Jian Wushuang finally came to the side of the purple-haired elder. Did it really go so smoothly? Jian Wushuang stood beside the purple-haired elder's corpse and looked around the human-shaped sculptures with a trace of doubt, but the sculptures still did not respond. Shaking his head, Jian Wushuang did not think too much about it. He carefully inspected the purple-haired old man's divine body and confirmed that there was nothing wrong with it. Then he bowed slightly to the purple-haired old man and said, "Sorry to offend you." After bowing, he took the purple-haired old man's blood-red armor and the dark cyan longstaff in his hand. When he came into contact with the blood-red armor and the dark cyan longstaff, Jian Wushuang finally sensed the power of the 2 supreme treasures and knew their specific levels. Shadow Demon Thunder Rod, a Pinnacle Universe True Treasure. Blood Demon Cave Armor, a Pinnacle Universe True Treasure Armor. After learning the name and level of the armor and the long rod, Jian Wushuang was stunned. A Pinnacle Universe True Treasure? And there's a Pinnacle Universe True Treasure Armor? Jian Wushuang's eyes were wide open. Universe True Treasures were divided into Elementary, Advanced, Pinnacle, Peak and Supreme True Treasures. 1 top-tier Universe True Treasures were enough to make countless Principals Masters fight over them. As for Pinnacle True Treasures and Supreme True Treasures, they were usually only available to great beings at the ruler realm, and only a few Principals Masters who were extremely powerful had them. That was why there were Pinnacle Universe True Treasures. But now, Shadow Demon Thunderstaff and Blood Demon Cave Armor were both at the level of Pinnacle Universe True Treasures. The Blood Demon Cave Armor was a Pinnacle Universe True Treasure Armor, which was so valuable that even an ordinary ruler realm expert would be envious of it. Under normal circumstances, even an extremely powerful Principals Master would be very lucky to have an attack weapon at the Pinnacle Universe True Treasure level. It's impossible for him to have a Pinnacle Universe True Treasure Armor. Since this old man left behind such a true treasure, then his identity. Jian Wushuang looked at the purple-haired old man in front of him. Waves of emotions rose in his heart. This purple-haired old man should be a ruler if he was not mistaken. Jian Wushuang's expression suddenly changed. He noticed that there was a black ring on the ring finger of the purple-haired old man's right hand. Interspatial ring. Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. This ruler left not only the Blood Demon Cave Armor and the Shadow Demon Thunder Staff, but also the Interspatial Ring. Jian Wushuang was overjoyed. The Blood Demon Cave Armor and the Shadow Demon Thunder Staff alone were invaluable, but now there was an Interspatial Ring. The Interspatial Ring was left by the ruler. It should contain all the wealth of the Ruler Realm Expert and the entire wealth of a Ruler Realm Expert. Jian Wushuang was excited just thinking about it. Jian Wushuang possessed it and took off the interspatial ring on the ring finger of the purple-haired elder. Since the owner of the interspatial ring had died, Jian Wushuang could use his consciousness to check it. However, when he checked it, he immediately frowned. What's going on? How can there be a token in this interspatial ring? Jian Wushuang took out the only token left in the interspatial ring with surprise and then sank his consciousness into the token. In an instant, a vast amount of information surged toward Jian Wushuang. I am the Star Thunder ruler in the mortal world. The first sentence of the information revealed the true identity of the purple-haired elder, and it also proved Jian Wushuang's guess. He is indeed a ruler, but I have never heard of the Star Thunder ruler. There is also the mortal world. There seems to be no mortal world in the dozens of star worlds in the surrounding territories. Jian Wushuang frowned, then he continued reading. Chapter 3564, Pathetic, Pitiful, Hateful. I have been wandering in the unexplored area of Devil's Smoke Valley for many years. I accidentally discovered this special space-time and barged into this high platform. From that day onward, I fell into a nightmare of endless years. On this high platform there are 18 human-shaped sculptures. They formed their own magic formations. When I barged into this high platform they did not wake up. However, when I wanted to leave the high platform, they would immediately wake up and display shocking strength to stop me. I tried my best, but I could not break through their obstruction, nor could I take half a step out of this high platform. During this long period of time, I was trapped by these 18 human-shaped sculptures on this high platform. After a million years, I racked my brain and tried countless ways, but I still couldn't break through the array of these 18 human-shaped sculptures. I was almost in despair. After being trapped for 3 million years, I found that although the array of the human-shaped sculptures on this high platform was extremely powerful, it was not impossible for me to break through it. Therefore, I began to study the array of the human-shaped sculptures. After being trapped for 5 million years, my staff technique improved greatly, and I finally had the ability to fight these human-shaped sculptures head-on. However, I was only able to compete with one of the human-shaped sculptures. It was still extremely far for me to break through the array formed by 18 human-shaped sculptures. However, I have already seen a great hope. After being trapped for 8 million years, my staff technique improved again. Even if I were to face 2 or 3 human-shaped sculptures at the same time, I would still be able to do it with ease. This made me even more convinced that I could rely on my own ability to break through these 18 human-shaped sculpture arrays. After being trapped for 10 million years, although my staff skills did not improve greatly, they were still much better than before. My hopes were also growing. However, when the 10 million years period was just over, the 18 human-shaped sculptures that would not take the initiative to attack me as long as I did not try to leave the high platform actually took the initiative to attack me. Moreover, the 18 human-shaped sculptures attacked me at the same time, not giving me the slightest chance to struggle. Only then did I understand that these 18 human-shaped sculptures were a test, and the duration of the test was 10 million years. If I could break through these 18 human-shaped sculptures within 10 million years, then I would pass the test. Unfortunately, I didn't do it. 18 human-shaped sculptures attacked at the same time. I knew that I was going to die. But I hated it. I couldn't accept it. I was a ruler. How could I die in this place that no one knew about? Even if I was going to die, I couldn't die a coward. I wanted to let people know about this place. I wanted more people to come here. Most importantly, I wanted people to die with me. Then, I threw all the treasures I've collected in my life out of the high platform, and let them wander in this space and time on their own. I hope that one day someone will find these treasures and find this place. I even put my Shadow Demon Lightning Rod and Blood Demon Cave Armor in a conspicuous place. I want those who come near the high platform to see the 2 treasures I left behind, and then charge into the high platform without caring about their own safety. That way they can follow in my footsteps. You've been trapped here for tens of thousands of years, and you've been working hard with only a tiny bit of hope. In the end, when you finally saw the chance to break out, you were immediately wiped out. How could I be the only one who experienced this despair? Haha, aren't you furious and terrified when you see this? It's useless. From the moment you entered the platform, picked up the command token that I left behind, and saw the contents of the command token, you were destined to be trapped here. You were destined to experience my despair. Haha, be angry and resentful. Remember my name, the Star Thunder Ruler. The message finally ended here. After Jian Wushuang read all the information in the token, he was as shocked and angry as the Star Thunder Ruler said. A trap. The Star Thunder Ruler deliberately put his supreme treasure armor and magic weapon in a conspicuous place before he died to attract people to break into the high platform and get trapped here like him? He's taking revenge. He's taking revenge on the experts who came to this high platform. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. In his opinion, the Star Thunder Ruler was really hateful. He was the one who accidentally broke into the high platform and was trapped here. If he was kinder, he could leave some traces here so that the newcomers would notice the danger of the high platform and not easily break in. Even if he was not so kind-hearted, he would have done nothing and left the newcomers to fend for themselves. However, he first threw the treasures he had collected all his life out of the high platform and let them float in this special space and time, so as to attract the experts who had mistakenly entered this special space and came to the high platform with the desire for opportunities. Then he deliberately revealed his two true treasures to make the experts who came to the high platform greedy and then intruded into the center of the high platform. When Jian Wushuang came to the high platform this time, he saw the two true treasures left by the Star Thunder Ruler at first glance. Although he could not see the specific level of power of these two true treasures, he could tell at a glance that these two true treasures were extraordinary. The more he could not see the truth, the more attractive they were to the cultivators. Jian Wushuang could not help but feel that he had already come. He could not come here for nothing, so he entered the center of the high platform. If he did not have these two supreme treasures, he would have sensed the danger from the beginning and would not have entered the high platform so easily. He is a hateful person, but at the same time he is also very sad, very pitiful. Jian Wushuang said again. It was sad because the Star Thunder Ruler, a dignified ruler, was a super expert who could do whatever he wanted in this territory, but in the end he was trapped in this place and no one knew about it. It was really sad. It was a pity that the Star Thunder Ruler had seen a chance to walk out of the high platform in the past tens of millions of years. If he was given more time he would be able to walk out. However, when the tens of millions of years were up, his hope was gone and he was killed on the spot. His hope turned into despair. It was a pity. Although Jian Wushuang was angry at such a pitiful person, he could not feel any hatred at this moment. Star Thunder Ruler, although you deliberately tricked me, the two supreme treasures you left behind did indeed fall into my hands. It can be considered as a great benefit to me. I still have to thank you. As for whether I can walk out of here alive, it depends on my own luck. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, then he looked at the human-shaped statues around the high platform. As expected, the biggest danger of this high platform is these human-shaped statues. When I walked in earlier, I was on guard against them, but I didn't expect that these statues were not blocking my way in, but would prevent me from leaving. Chapter 3565. Human-shaped statues. The human-shaped statues on the high platform had no reaction from the moment Jian Wushuang stepped onto the high platform. According to the Star Thunder Ruler, these human-shaped statues will only wake up when you try to leave the high platform. They will not wake up completely in the beginning. Only one or two will wake up, but even if it's just a human-shaped statue, it will crush the Star Thunder Ruler in the beginning. If the Star Thunder Ruler is right and the human-shaped sculpture is so powerful, then the human-shaped sculpture array is too terrifying. Jian Wushuang frowned. In any case, I have to try it myself. Besides, the Star Thunder Ruler said that the human-shaped sculpture array is just a test. It won't kill you directly in the beginning. It will only kill you when the time comes. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and took out his shadow sword. Then he slowly walked out of the high platform. Jian Wushuang had only taken 2 steps. Buzz. The high platform suddenly shook. Then, Jian Wushuang saw a human-shaped sculpture in front of him shake a little and a lot of dust scattered. The human-shaped sculpture slowly moved. At the same time, the eyes of the human-shaped statue opened directly. These eyes were emotionless and without any intelligence. After opening them, they directly aimed at Jian Wushuang. Let's try. Jian Wushuang clenched his teeth and immediately used his life magic power. His body turned into lightning and suddenly shot out. The moment he moved, the awakened human-shaped statue also moved. It took a series of steps, each step easily crossing hundreds of feet. In a flash, it appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. At the same time, the ancient dark black longsword in his hand also slashed down. Heaven cleaving skill, no rest until death. Jian Wushuang knew how terrifying the human-shaped statue was, so he did not dare to underestimate it. As soon as he attacked, he unleashed his strongest battle strength. Not only did he use the heaven-cleaving skill, but he also used his strongest skill, no rest until death. Swoosh. The sword light with endless destructive will, accompanied by endless hatred, slashed out directly. In the blink of an eye, the sword light collided with the dark black longsword of the human-shaped statue. Clang. With a loud sound, Jian Wushuang's arm shook slightly, and his whole body shot out like a cannonball. He did not stop until he returned to the center of the high platform, which was the corpse of the Star Thunder ruler. Seeing Jian Wushuang return here, the human-shaped statue returned to where it had been standing before, and its eyes were closed. Jian Wushuang was not frightened by the strength displayed by the human-shaped statue. Instead, he was surprised. What's going on? Didn't the Star Thunder ruler say that the human-shaped statue was enough to crush him? However, although the human-shaped statue is very powerful and can crush me, its battle strength is still at the level of a principal's master, and it hasn't reached the pinnacle of a principal's master, but a principal's master at the pinnacle of the sixth realm? Jian Wushuang's expression was strange. However, he immediately thought of a possibility. Could it be that the human-shaped sculpture array is based on the strength of the cultivator trapped in the middle of the high platform? The Star Thunder ruler is a ruler realm expert, so these human-shaped sculptures display the battle strength of a ruler. Although I have the battle strength of a principal's master, I'm only an immortal saint. So what these human-shaped sculptures display is the battle strength of a principal's master? Jian Wushuang thought of this possibility, which seemed very likely to him. Let's try again. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate to try again. This time, although he activated his life divine power, he did not use the heaven-cleaving skill. The battle strength he released was only in the initial stage of the sixth realm, but he still used his strongest move. The result was that he was defeated again, the same result as before. However, after this attempt, Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. As expected, as expected. This human-shaped sculpture array is a test, and this test is determined by the strength of the cultivator. To be exact, it depends on the power of the cultivator. When I used the heaven-cleaving skill, the power I displayed was at the pinnacle of the sixth realm, so the power displayed by the human-shaped sculpture was also at the pinnacle of the sixth realm. Later, when I didn't use the heaven-cleaving skill, the power displayed by the human-shaped sculpture was only at the initial stage of the sixth realm, so the power displayed by the human-shaped sculpture was only at the initial stage of the sixth realm. The power is exactly the same, even the power of the supreme treasure and the secret skill are the same. The only difference is the secret skill. Jian Wushuang recalled the two collisions he had just had with the humanoid statue. During the two collisions, the swordsmanship displayed by the humanoid statue was the same. The power of the swordsmanship was extremely powerful, even more powerful than the ultimate skill that he had created. According to the information left by the Star Thunder ruler, he has made a lot of progress in his strength over the past tens of millions of years. The progress is mainly in his staff skills. If nothing goes wrong, it should be the strongest ultimate skill that he created. In other words, if you want to break through the human-shaped sculpture formation, you have to rely on your own absolute art. As for other powers or other methods, they are useless. Jian Wushuang's eyes were shining. He could see that the absolute art displayed by the human-shaped sculpture was still at the peak of rank 6, but it was stronger than his deadly one. In other words, as long as he could create a stronger absolute art, in terms of power, it was superior to the absolute art of the human-shaped sculpture, so he could win the head-on collision with the human-shaped sculpture. If he won the head-on collision, he would not be repelled by the human-shaped sculpture. Instead, he could repent the human-shaped sculpture, and then he could naturally leave the high platform. Of course, there was not only one human-shaped sculpture on the high platform, but a total of 18. If all the absolute arts displayed by the 18 were like that, then even if Jian Wushuang created a more powerful absolute art at the peak of level 6 than the human-shaped sculpture, he would still be unable to break through the human-shaped sculpture formation. At the very least, he had to create an ultimate skill at the 6th rank. The strongest ultimate skill. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, his eyes shining with a fierce light. When he was in the divine beginning realm, he had seen Demon Master Chenhua perform the strongest ultimate skill with his own eyes. The power was indeed earth-shaking. Demon Master Chenhua had also put in endless effort to reach that step. Now he was still very far from that step. Chapter 3566. Two consciousnesses. Fortunately, this human-shaped statue array has a time limit of tens of millions of years, which is enough for me. Let's take it slowly. Jian Wushuang was not in a hurry. He had experienced too many storms and waves in his 2 lives. He had also experienced many trials of this human-shaped statue array. He was no longer afraid, and it was useless even if he was afraid. With the facts in front of him, he could only try his best to pass this trial. This human-shaped statue happens to use a sword as a weapon. Its swordsmanship is extremely powerful and contains profound mysteries. I can observe it during the battle. Although I have attacked twice in a row, I have only met it head-on twice. I wonder how its swordsmanship is in other aspects. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly, then he struck again and swept toward the figure. Soon Jian Wushuang and the human-shaped sculpture again. While Jian Wushuang was trapped in the middle of the high platform and fighting with the human-shaped sculpture behind the high platform, in the deepest part of this special space-time, there was a consciousness that had been sleeping for God knows how many years, and then he woke up. Has someone come to this place again and is breaking through the 18 deadly arrays? The last time someone came to challenge the 18 absolute formations was 3 chaos cycles ago. Although the person who came to challenge the 18 absolute formations ended up dying within it, he was still a ruler-level figure and he was more or less on the verge of passing through it. But this time, the only person who came was an immortal saint? I didn't expect a mere saint to be able to come to this space-time. How interesting. This consciousness was obviously awakened in the deepest part of this space-time, but it seemed to have complete control over everything in this space-time. Like what happened to Jian Wushuang on the high platform, this consciousness was also very clear. Third brother. This consciousness suddenly let out a deep voice, echoing in the deepest part of this space-time. Not long after, another consciousness also woke up in the deepest part of this special space-time. What's the matter? A cold voice was heard. Have you seen that little guy who is challenging the 18 ultimate formation? The first consciousness said. He is just an ant. Is he worth you waking me up? The second consciousness said coldly. The saint level is indeed an ant, but this little guy's ability is extraordinary. Didn't you see that he has already created the pinnacle absolute art of a principles master? Moreover, his battle strength doesn't seem to be much weaker than an ordinary principles master of the 6th realm. A mere saint can actually possess such battle strength. If I'm not mistaken, his life level should be extremely high. He might even be a legendary perfect level life form. Such a life form is as rare as a phoenix feather or a Qilin horn even in the vast universe. The first consciousness said. So what? Even though perfect level life forms are rare, it's not like there aren't any in the vast universe. However, how many people can reach the peak? Not to mention standing at the top of the universe, even stepping into the position of supreme being would be extremely difficult. And this little fellow, even though he has a perfect level life form, from the moment he stepped into this space-time and entered the 18 ultimate formations, his fate was already determined. Over tens of millions of years, he will never be able to break through the 18 ultimate formations. In the end he will still die. The second consciousness said coldly. You're right. The 18 ultimate formations left behind by Master are an extremely terrifying test even in the vast universe. In addition, these tests usually target cultivators at the ruler realm. If this little fellow is already a ruler, then with his talent he might have a chance to make it through in 10 million years. Unfortunately, when he entered this formation he was only an immortal saint. The test that the immortal saint will face in the 18 ultimate formations will be tens or even hundreds of times more difficult than that of a ruler realm cultivator. After all, it is indeed inconceivable for an immortal saint to reach that level in absolute arts. However, when this little fellow entered the 18 ultimate formations, he already created a peak tier 6 absolute art. His starting point is already very high, so there might be a slight chance. The first consciousness said. Humph, a slight chance? Maybe, but do you think he can succeed? The second consciousness snorted. The first consciousness hesitated for a moment but smiled bitterly. Fourth, don't forget, we are now at the edge of the universe. It can be said that we are in the barren land of the vast universe. The cultivators born in this barren land are far inferior to those born in the core area of the universe in terms of talent, comprehension, and other aspects. Master had such a great reputation and power in the deepest part of the universe. He had rushed to this space and time for countless years, and there were countless people who deliberately came to challenge the 18 ultimate formation. But in the end, only 3 people were able to pass. Those 3 are all top-tier beings in the universe. In fact, they can be said to be the most incredible geniuses. Later on, they became autarchs one after another, and all of them were the most terrifyingly powerful of them all. However, 2 of them passed the tests at the Rulric level, while the other was a principles master. This little fellow is merely an immortal saint. Do you think that this little fellow who was born in a barren land, is even more monstrous than the 3 decision-making geniuses who passed the 18 absolute formations? Even though this little guy has a perfect level life form, his life level is only an innate advantage. Even though he has endless potential, it doesn't explain his talent. The second consciousness said, "You're right." The first consciousness nodded, obviously agreeing with this point. In their opinion, not to mention this barren land at the edge of the universe, even if there were super geniuses from all corners of the universe in the deepest parts of the universe, there probably would not be a super monster who could break through the 18 absolute arrays at the level of the immortal saint. Third brother, if you have time to pay attention to that little fellow, why don't you sleep well and recover from your injuries? We followed our master in battle and have been down and out since then, but you probably don't want to continue like this, right? Only by doing our best to recover can we get out of this predicament as soon as possible. The second consciousness said, "Understood." The first consciousness nodded and immediately fell silent. The 2 consciousnesses quickly fell into a deep sleep again. The deepest part of this vast space-time was once again completely silent. Not a single sound could be heard. Chapter 3567. Evolution of Sword Techniques. The vast universe was vast and boundless. The territory where the divine beginning realm was located did indeed belong to the edge of the universe. Could also be said that it was a barren land of the universe. However, the universe had its own laws. Although this territory did not have such excellent cultivation conditions as those in the depths of the universe, it had 3 great battlefields filled with endless opportunities. For a long time, experts from various forces in the astral world of this territory had competed to explore these 3 battlefields. Jianghu was now in a special space-time in the unknown region deep in Devil Smoke Valley. Because this place was an unknown region, no one knew about it and no one would be able to find it. When Jianghu was trapped in this special space-time, he was completely cut off from the outside world. He could only explore the human-shaped sculpture array day after day, trying his best to improve his swordsmanship, to improve his absolute art. Time passed by quickly and 1,800 years passed in a flash. 1,800 years was a long time for Jianghu in this life, but for many cultivators in the universe, it was very short, almost in the blink of an eye. In addition, 1,800 years was a long time compared to the tens of millions of years of the human-shaped sculpture array. On the high platform, Jianghu's eyes were like lightning and he was still fighting with the human-shaped sculpture with the shadow divine sword in his hand. However, unlike before, he did not show any power at all. He did not use the power of several wills he had mastered, including some secret skills and the power of the blood crystal armor. He knew that these powers would have no effect on him breaking out of the array. No matter how much power he showed, even if he showed the power of a ruler, the humanoid sculpture would show the same power as him. Therefore, he simply relied on his basic divine power to fight with the humanoid sculpture. The difference was his swordsmanship. Compared to 1800 years ago, Jianghu's swordsmanship had improved greatly. A ghostly purple phantom, like an extremely agile purple demonic beast, jumped down from above and slashed toward the shoulder of the humanoid sculpture. Level 6 Pinnacle Absolute Art, Purple Charm. The humanoid sculpture simply moved and easily avoided the purple phantom. At the same time, the dark black longsword in his hand quickly slashed down like a black lightning bolt. Jianghu had been prepared for this. A wave of destructive will suddenly swept up and burst out with a deadly hatred. An absolute art at the peak of level 6, deadly. Bang. A low collision sound was heard. Jianghu and the human-shaped sculpture both retreated. However, the moment Jianghu steadied himself, the absolute shadow divine sword in his hand strangely pierced like a meteor phantom. It pierced directly into the chest of the human-shaped statue, and a terrifying strangling power suddenly erupted. The 6th stage pinnacle skill, Sword Rainbow. However, the sword was still blocked by the human-shaped statue. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. One after another, sword lights and sword shadows lit up in the void on the high platform, and the terrifying sword essence filled the entire high platform. Jianghu displayed his swordsmanship to the fullest. The human-shaped sculpture did not emit any aura, but it could still easily deal with Jianghu's swordsmanship. In the blink of an eye, Jianghu fought fiercely with the human-shaped sculpture for an hour before finally stopping. Jianghu returned to the center of the high platform. After he returned, Jianghu took a deep look at the human-shaped sculpture that had closed its eyes again and let out a long sigh in his heart. 1,800 years. I have studied swordsmanship for 1,800 years. I have made great progress in swordsmanship, but I am only on par with this human-shaped sculpture. I am even slightly inferior. Jianghu sighed in his heart. In the past 1,800 years, he had fought with this human-shaped sculpture many times. As he fought, he realized that this human-shaped sculpture did not only know swordsmanship, but also swordsmanship in all other aspects. It was extremely terrifying among the top-tier 6th-level absolute arts. Because of this, he was completely crushed by this human-shaped sculpture even after using all of his skills at the beginning. However, as he fought and observed it over and over again, he also gained some insights into swordsmanship. Gradually, his swordsmanship improved as well. After 1,800 years, his swordsmanship had indeed improved tremendously. In terms of swordsmanship alone, other than the deadly attacks at the beginning, he had created a total of 3 sword techniques. These 3 sword techniques were all peak tier 6 ultimate techniques, and among those peak tier 6 ultimate techniques, they were all extremely powerful. There was also the deadly attacks. In the past 1800 years, he had improved and improved several times. Now he could rely on this move to fight head-on with the humanoid sculpture. At the very least, he would not be at a disadvantage. It could be said that his sword techniques had improved too much. However, even so, he could not gain the slightest advantage in this fierce battle with the humanoid sculpture. He could not even break through the obstruction of the first humanoid sculpture, not to mention the other 17 humanoid sculptures that had yet to make a move. My swordsmanship has already improved greatly. Furthermore, the few sword techniques I created should have reached the peak of tier 6 ultimate arts, but they still can't break through the obstruction of this human-shaped sculpture. It seems that if I want to break through the obstruction of this sculpture, I must create the strongest ultimate art. As for this strongest ultimate art, this human-shaped sculpture doesn't know how to use it, so I have no way to observe and experience it. I can only slowly comprehend it myself. Fortunately, my comprehension of sword principle has reached a new level, and I have created the 4 strongest absolute arts of the peak of the 6 states. It's not too difficult to create the strongest absolute arts based on this. Jianghu took a deep breath and sat down with his legs crossed. Soon he closed his eyes. He knew very well that without any reference or observation, he could only create the strongest absolute arts by evolving and simulating them in the depths of his mind. Only when he had a rough model of swordsmanship in his mind could he try to follow it. Therefore, the most important thing for him now was the evolution of swordsmanship. From that day on, Jianghu did not fight with the human-shaped sculpture. Instead, he sat cross-legged in the center of the high platform without moving at all. All kinds of swordsmanship appeared in his mind. These sword techniques kept combining and evolving to form new sword techniques. Time passed quietly. Chapter 3568. The most powerful ultimate skill, Starfire Burning Sun. Another 1,200 years passed in a flash. Jianghu had been trapped in this high platform for 3,000 years, including the 1,800 years he had spent before. During the 1,200 years, Jianghu did not move at all. He had been sitting cross-legged and thinking about various sword techniques. It was not until this moment that he slowly opened his eyes. It's about time. If the evolution of swordsmanship in my mind is correct, then the final sword move that I have evolved should be able to reach the level of the strongest ultimate skill. Now I can only keep trying and practicing it. Jianghu took a deep breath, then he stood up. He glanced at the motionless humanoid sculpture with its eyes closed, and in the next moment he directly rushed out. The moment he moved, the human-shaped statue immediately woke up and rushed forward with a dark black longsword in its hand. The two of them met head-on the high platform. Jianghu did not dodge and directly used his swordsmanship to meet it head-on. Cut! A low shout came out of Jianghu's mouth, and the shadow-killing sword in his hand turned into a purple graceful sword. It was extremely violent and swift. The human-shaped statue also slashed out its dark black longsword. The two sword shadows collided head-on. Bang! A low sound of collision rang out. The two powerful forces collided, but the human-shaped statue was the first to be unable to withstand it. It took a few steps back. As expected, I have the upper hand. Jianghu smiled. The sword skill he had just displayed was the sword skill that had evolved in his mind over the past 1,200 years. In his opinion, this swordsmanship could reach the level of the strongest absolute art. However, because he had just evolved it and had not really tried to practice it, it was naturally impossible for him to directly reach the level of the strongest absolute art. However, it was still much stronger than the average peak level 6 absolute art. Therefore, he had gained the upper hand when he fought head-on with the human-shaped sculpture. This was the first time that Jianghu had gained the upper hand in the collision with the human-shaped sculpture after being trapped on the high platform for so many years. I have just evolved and now I have such power. It proves that my evolution is not wrong. Next, I just need to keep practicing. Jianghu's eyes were shining. Again? He immediately rushed toward the human-shaped sculpture again and chose to fight head-on. Bang! It was another confrontation. Jian Wushuang used the same sword move, but the power of this sword move was obviously a little stronger than the previous one, and it had a greater advantage in the collision with the human-shaped sculpture. Haha, continue? Jian Wushuang's face was full of smiles as he rushed forward to meet the human-shaped sculpture head-on again and again. He attacked again and again, displaying the swordsmanship that had evolved over 1,200 years. During this practice, the power of the swordsmanship had been increasing. At first, he only had a slight advantage in the head-on collision with the human-shaped sculpture, but gradually the advantage grew until it was completely crushed. Every head-on collision, the human-shaped sculpture was almost pushed back by him by hundreds of feet, until the 171st collision between Jian Wushuang and the human-shaped sculpture. It's like a volcano that has been dormant for many years suddenly erupting. The most important part of my sword attack is the instantaneous explosive power. Instantaneous, explosive power. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a fierce light, and the shadow divine sword in his hand emitted a faint purple cold light. In an instant he slashed out. The sword's shadow swept across the air, but in the process, it seemed to form a burning purple flame and instantly covered the human-shaped sculpture. After all, the human-shaped sculpture had no intelligence and was only blindly using sword skills to resist. However, when the two sword lights collided, the purple flame contained an earth-shaking power. It was like a volcano that had been silent for hundreds of millions of years suddenly exploded and destroyed the world in an instant. Boom! A violent explosion was heard, and the surrounding void faintly trembled. The human-shaped sculpture had been completely swallowed by the terrifying power that erupted from the shadow divine sword. Whoosh! Like a meteor, the human-shaped sculpture was completely blown away and directly flew out of the high platform. However, because of the material of the human-shaped sculpture, Jian Wushuang's sword attack did not really cause any damage to it. However, the result of sending the human-shaped statue out of the high platform was already a pleasant surprise to Jian Wushuang. The most powerful ultimate skill has been achieved. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, his eyes filled with unconcealable ecstasy. The moment he sent the human-shaped statue out of the high platform, he knew that the power of his sword attack had indeed reached the level of the most powerful ultimate skill. After 1,800 years of refining and upgrading his swordsmanship, and then 1,000 years of evolution, he finally created his most powerful ultimate skill. He had already thought of the name of this ultimate skill. When this swordsmanship is performed, it's like a sky full of sparks devouring everything. Its name should be Starfire Burning Sun. Jian Wushuang said with a smile. The most powerful absolute art created by Jian Wushuang, Starfire Burning Sun, was born. When Jian Wushuang created Starfire Burning Sun and sent the human-shaped sculpture flying out of the high platform, the first consciousness woke up again in the deepest part of this special spacetime. He created the most powerful level 6 absolute art in just 3,000 years? He's quite capable. The consciousness could not help but praise him at first, but then he said, but he has already created a top-tier skill of the 6th rank when he arrived, so his starting point is quite high. It's not too shocking for him to create the strongest skill of the 6th rank in 3,000 years. Moreover, the Immortal Saint can't just create the strongest skill of the 6th rank to pass the 18-skill formation. He is still far from passing the 18-skill formation. With that, the consciousness went silent again. Of course, Jian Wushuang did not know the existence of this consciousness at all, nor did he know how it evaluated him. He was only happy and surprised at his breakthrough in swordsmanship. At the same time, he began to look forward to the human-shaped sculpture array. I have created the most powerful skill of the 6th realm. A single human-shaped sculpture is no longer a threat to me, but I wonder if I can break out of this high platform now. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang arrived at the central area of the high platform in the next moment. Chapter 3569. 6 human-shaped sculptures. Previously, Jian Wushuang had only tried to rush out of the high platform. As soon as he moved, the human-shaped sculpture closest to him would wake up and stop him. He had been unable to break through just one human-shaped sculpture. Naturally, the other human-shaped sculptures did not wake up. But now, the humanoid statue had been thrown out of the high platform. He had successfully arrived at the middle of the high platform. When he arrived here, a total of 5 humanoid statues around the high platform opened their eyes at the same time, including the one that had been thrown out of the high platform by Jian Wushuang. A total of 6 humanoid statues moved to kill him at the same time. Only 6. Jian Wushuang frowned. He thought that he had created the most powerful skill and broken through the first human-shaped statue, so the next 17 statues should all wake up. However, only 6 of them attacked, only 1/3 of them. The remaining 12 statues still did not move. Can 6 human-shaped sculptures stop me? Jian Wushuang's expression was cold. After all, there was a huge gap between an absolute art at the peak of the 6th rank and the most powerful absolute art at the 6th rank. The difference in the power of the absolute art was more than 10 times. This meant that Jian Wushuang could easily crush any human-shaped sculpture. However, if 6 of them joined hands, he could still crush them with the Starfire Burning Sun move. Soon Jian Wushuang made his move. Boom! The power burst out. Jian Wushuang's shadow sword emitted a faint purple cold light and slashed out in an instant. The sword shadow swept out, forming a raging purple flame that covered the 6 human-shaped sculptures in front of him. The 6 human-shaped sculptures immediately made their moves. They stood in front of Jian Wushuang and attacked together. The posture and power of the 6 human-shaped sculptures were exactly the same. It was exactly the same as the swordsmanship of the human-shaped statue that Jian Wushuang had been fighting for 3,000 years. The swordsmanship was only at the peak of stage 6. However, after the 6 human-shaped statues displayed their swordsmanship, an incredible scene appeared. The 6 human-shaped statues displayed their swordsmanship individually, but after they displayed their swordsmanship, the swordsmanship of the 6 human-shaped statues immediately formed a whole. As if their swordsmanship was a whole, the 6 sword shadows also completely merged into one, instantly forming an incredible sword shadow that slashed toward Jian Wushuang. Boom! The sword shadow swept through the battle as if it was a piece of dried twigs. The burning purple flames that covered the entire sky disappeared in an instant, and Jian Wushuang's sword move completely disintegrated. The power of the sword shadow was still applied to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang only felt an incredible power rushing toward him, instantly pushing him back to the starting point, which was the center of the high platform. After returning to this place, the 6 human-shaped sculptures immediately stopped and returned to where they were standing and closed their eyes again. However, at this moment, Jian Wushuang's mind was in a daze. How could this be? Jian Wushuang's face was full of disbelief. After all, he had created the most powerful skill of the 6th stage. His Starfire Burning Sun move was obviously much more powerful than the swordsmanship displayed by the human-shaped sculptures. Even more than 10 times, however, when the 6 human-shaped sculptures joined hands and displayed the same swordsmanship, they actually merged together and completely crushed him. A formation. These human-shaped sculptures use a special formation. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes slightly. He could see that these human-shaped sculptures combined their swordsmanship with a special formation to form a whole. After forming a whole, the swordsmanship was dozens of times more powerful than the swordsmanship displayed by each of them. It was much stronger than his Starfire Burning Sun, which was why he was crushed. I thought that as long as I created the strongest 6th level skill, I would have a chance to pass through this high platform. But now it seems that I'm still far from it. Jian Wushuang felt bitter in his heart. The swordsmanship power formed by the combination of 6 human-shaped sculptures was much stronger than the strongest skill he had created. So if 10 human-shaped sculptures joined hands, or if all 18 sculptures joined hands, then what incredible power would they have after combining their swordsmanship? It's not enough. Creating the strongest absolute art of the 6th realm is not enough to break out of this array. It's far from enough. If these 18 sculptures can perfectly combine their swordsmanship and increase the power of their swordsmanship by dozens or even hundreds of times, then if I want to break through this place I have to create at least the ruler realm, which is a 7th level absolute art. Jian Wushuang's face was very ugly. A rank 7 secret art was a master realm secret art. Under normal circumstances, only experts at the master realm could create such a secret art. Of course, a few heaven-defying experts at the pinnacle of the 6th realm could also create such a secret art, but after all, there were too few of them in this territory. There were not many experts at the pinnacle of the 6th realm, but among these experts, there was probably no one who had created a master realm secret art. If there was one person Jian Wushuang knew, it was Di Shirsan. Di Shirsan, the leader of the 7-star mysterious sect, who had a great relationship with Jian Wushuang. According to Elder Dark Bone, Di Shirsan was a genius of sword principle. His understanding of sword principle had reached a new level, which many experts at the ruler realm had never been involved in. His understanding of sword principle was so high, it was no surprise that he must have created a master realm absolute art. However, Jian Wushuang could not find another person in this territory besides him. What kind of person was Di Shirsan? He was definitely a shocking sword principle genius. Jian Wushuang was not so arrogant as to be able to compete with such a sword principle genius. Moreover, Di Shirsan was a genuine principles master, and he was also a principles master at the pinnacle of the sixth realm. However, Jian Wushuang was just an immortal saint. For an immortal saint to create at least a level 7 absolute art, the test of the human-shaped sculpture array was so harsh that it was unbearable. This test, Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, feeling a little angry. He was angry because the test was too difficult. He had been through all kinds of tests in his 2 lives, but he had never felt that it was so difficult. It was so difficult that he even felt a little hopeless. No, I can't be anxious and I can't be completely hopeless. Jian Wushuang clenched his teeth and quickly calmed down. Chapter 3570. Death? Jian Wushuang had experienced many storms, so he could remain absolutely calm no matter how angry he was. He knew very well that this human-shaped sculpture array was a test. Since it was a test, he naturally had a chance to pass it. Even if the chance was slim, there was still a glimmer of hope. Moreover, this test had a duration of 10 million years, which was an extremely long time for Jian Wushuang. I can't be impatient. After all, I've only been trapped on this high platform for 3,000 years. I still have enough time. If I devote myself to studying sword principle and swordsmanship in the remaining long years, who knows what level I will reach. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, his heart also became firm. Then Jian Wushuang looked at the human-shaped statues in front of him. The 6 human-shaped statues just now displayed swordsmanship at the peak of the skill level, but when they combined their swordsmanship, the power of their swordsmanship suddenly increased by dozens of times. How did their swordsmanship merge together? And how did the power of their swordsmanship suddenly increase so much? Jian Wushuang was full of doubt and puzzlement. Soon he fought with the 6 human-shaped statues again. This time, Jian Wushuang wanted to see how the human-shaped statues combined their sword skills to increase their power. The process of combining sword skills would certainly be of great help to his swordsmanship and sword principle. On the high platform, Jian Wushuang was soon immersed in the bitter cultivation of his swordsmanship. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang had been trapped on the high platform for 10,000 years. During these 10,000 years, the special spacetime was certainly calm, but the outside world of this special spacetime was still in a state of fervor. Especially in Star Palace. It has been 10,000 years. After Heavenly Sword Marquis entered the unexplored area of Devil's Smoke Valley, there has been no trace of him for more than 10,000 years. I'm afraid he has already met his doom. Several high-level experts of the Star Palace gathered together. Among them, the Master of 7 Emotions was the first to speak. The 3 great battlefields are extremely dangerous. Therefore, not only our Star Palace, but also experts from the surrounding star realms and various forces will maintain contact with the outside world while adventuring in the 3 great battlefields. Every once in a while, they will take the initiative to report their situation to the higher-ups. They will also let the higher-ups of the forces they are in know that he is at least still alive. But now, little friend Heavenly Sword Marquis has been missing for a full 10,000 years. According to what we know, little friend Heavenly Sword Marquis hasn't been born in the divine beginning realm for more than 10,000 years. Now he has disappeared for such a long time. Moreover, he is in an unexplored region. Most likely he has already fallen, Axe One Master added. Hearing this, the people around them also fell silent. If one suddenly lost contact with the outside world while adventuring in the 3 battlefields, it was possible that they had fallen into some sort of predicament or special spacetime. Falling into these places did not mean that they would fall. However, such a place would not be trapped for long. 10,000 years was indeed too long. Moreover, someone had seen Jian Wushuang enter the unexplored area in the depths of Devil's Smoke Valley. Many dangers in the unexplored area were unknown. If one was careless, even a ruler realm expert could die instantly, let alone an ordinary principles master. Jian Wushuang had completely disappeared not long after entering the unexplored area, and it took him 10,000 years and an hour. It was almost certain that he was dead. It's a pity. It's really a pity. Marquis Duan Yu could not help sighing. The Heavenly Sword Marquis is extremely talented, and his potential is limitless. If he did not die, his future achievements would be immeasurable. But now, sigh. He can't blame anyone. He can only blame himself. 7 Emotions Master said in a low voice, I said before that although Heavenly Sword Marquis has some strength, he is only an immortal saint. He still has a lot of room to grow and there is no need to rush to the 3 battlefields. However, he went to the 3 battlefields and he went to the unknown region in the depths of Devil's Smoke Valley alone. Even some top principles masters don't dare to take risks in that place. As an immortal saint, it would be strange if he didn't die there. 7 Emotions Master was the only one among the 4 who had not dealt with Jian Wushuang. Therefore, she did not have to be too emotional about Jian Wushuang's death. At most she felt a little pity. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you are indeed a little too impulsive this time, Marquis Duanyu said. Ladies and gentlemen, although this Heavenly Sword Marquis has been missing for 10,000 years, we cannot be sure that he is dead. Perhaps he still has a chance to live? Star Saint Master, who had not spoken up, said. Yes, it is too presumptuous to say that Heavenly Sword Marquis is dead now. We should wait for a while. If there is still no news from him, we can announce his death later, Axe One Master said. Jian Wushuang was now known as Blood Sword Master, and he had a certain reputation in the 3 battlefields. Most importantly, Axe One Master knew Jian Wushuang's true identity and strength. He also knew how much their palace master valued Jian Wushuang. This could be seen from the fact that Desolate Emperor, the Heaven Ancestor, had summoned Jian Wushuang alone. It was not appropriate for such an important figure to conclude that Jian Wushuang was dead, so they could only wait. By the way, I heard that when the Heavenly Sword Marquis was in the Divine Beginning Realm, he was still a member of the Temporal Temple. The founder of the Temporal Temple, the Spacetime Ruler, has extraordinary means. The experts of the Temporal Temple under his command all left their life aura in their divine seats. We can send someone to the Temporal Temple to see if his divine seat is still there, Axe One Master said. It's useless. As soon as Axe One Master finished speaking, Seven Emotions Master shook his head and said, I've heard of the divine seat that contains the aura of life. It's not only in the Divine Beginning Realm, but also in some big forces in other astral worlds. But that thing is only useful in or around the astral world. If the cultivator is too far away from the divine seat, then he can't sense it. Right now, Heavenly Sword Marquis is in an unknown area deep in Devil Smoke Valley. It's too far away from the Divine Beginning Realm. Even if Heavenly Sword Marquis has fallen there, his divine position in the Divine Beginning Realm will not change. Chapter 3571. Can't you feel it? Axe One Master frowned slightly and took a deep breath after a while. In that case, we can only wait for another 20,000 years. If there is still no trace of the Heavenly Sword Marquis in the next 20,000 years, we can announce his death to the public. 20,000 years? The people around were surprised. After all, Jian Wushuang had been missing for 10,000 years. If the other cultivators under Star Palace had been missing for thousands of years, Star Palace would have announced his death. However, Jian Wushuang had to wait for 30,000 years before announcing his death. It was obvious how important Jian Wushuang was to Star Palace. Of course, Axe One Master and the others did not know the importance of Jian Wushuang, but they knew how much his palace master valued him. The reason why they had waited so long to announce Jian Wushuang's death was, to a large extent, because they wanted to wait until they were more certain before reporting the news to their palace master. In addition, they still had a glimmer of hope for Jian Wushuang. Unfortunately, after another 20,000 years, there was still no news of Jian Wushuang. This time, Axe One Master, Marquis Duanyu, and the others no longer had any hope for Jian Wushuang. Soon, the news of the Blood Sword Master's death spread throughout the territory. However, the 3 battlefields were extremely dangerous. There were countless experts from various forces in the Star Worlds. Although Jian Wushuang had a certain reputation, he was still a small fry compared to this territory. He was still a nobody. Even if the news of his death spread, it would not cause any ripples in this territory. At most, he would only have contact with Jian Wushuang, Heavy Master, Saber Python Master, and Purple Sound Master, who had a certain friendship with him, sighed slightly in their hearts. Time passed quickly, and the 3 battlefields were still bustling with activity. In the depths of Devil Smoke Valley, Jian Wushuang had been trapped here for 50,000 years in the special spacetime zone in the unknown region. Being trapped for 50,000 years was a torture for Jian Wushuang. Fortunately, he could constantly fight with those human-shaped sculptures, and his swordsmanship and strength had been improving. Therefore, he was not too lonely and boring. In addition, after 50,000 years, he had become completely calm and even quiet. Now he was not worried about his predicament at all. Instead, he was looking forward to his future. In these 50,000 years, I have fought with these 6 human-shaped sculptures many times. I have been pondering over the mysteries of their swordsmanship fusion. I didn't understand how their swordsmanship could be perfectly fused together, and why their power would increase so much after the fusion. But now I understand. Jian Wushuang stood there with a smile on his face as he looked at the 6 human-shaped sculptures in front of him. That was right. For 50,000 years, he was still stuck in the 6 human-shaped sculptures. Even though his swordsmanship had improved greatly, he still could not break through the obstacles of the 6 human-shaped sculptures. However, although he could not break through the obstacles of the 6 human-shaped sculptures, he understood the reason why the swordsmanship of the 6 human-shaped sculptures had suddenly skyrocketed. It's the sword principle. The reason why the sword techniques they displayed could be combined so perfectly is that the sword principle they have mastered is completely different from the sword principle I have mastered. My sword principle is the solipsistic sword principle, with myself as the core. Even the power of the sword principle originates from the sword world condensed in my body. However, the sword principle of these human-shaped sculptures doesn't have themselves as the core, but the entire heaven and earth as the core. The power of the sword principle they use also originates from the surrounding heaven and earth. To be exact, it originates from the vast universe. Although my sword world is stable and powerful, it's still just a small sword world. No matter how much my sword principle improves, its power will still be limited. However, the power of the sword principle from the universe is truly boundless. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, his eyes shining with a bright light. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. He understood the shortcomings of his sword principle. Just as he said, his sword principle was centered on himself. Although it was powerful, it was too narrow. It was like a small stream. Although he could control it freely, how could the power of a small stream be compared to the mighty sea? Let alone the entire universe? Wrong. Jian Wushuang laughed. I've been using the enlightenment system of the divine beginning realm sword principle, with my own sword principle as the core. I've been improving step by step according to the level of the divine beginning realm sword principle. However, I've never thought that the divine beginning realm is just an unremarkable third-class world star in the vast universe. How could the cultivation system in this world star be complete? How can it all be right? I couldn't help it. I was born in the divine beginning realm, so my horizons were too small. I didn't see the true vastness of this universe, so I didn't question some of the cultivation and comprehension systems in the divine beginning realm. But now, I understand that the true sword Tao isn't based on oneself, but should be based on heaven and earth, with the vast universe as the core. That is the true vastness, the most powerful sword Tao. Jian Wushuang laughed crazily, and his laughter echoed in this special space and time. The laughter lasted for a long time before it finally calmed down. In the middle of the high platform, Jian Wushuang had already sat down with his legs crossed. His eyes were cold and his body slightly shook. In an instant, a huge and complete sword world appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. This sword world was the sword principle world that Jian Wushuang had spent a great deal of money to condense. It represented Jian Wushuang's achievements in sword principle. Now, this sword world spanned 100,000 years. The boundless sword tree in the center was also 100,000 feet tall. Its branches were lush and lush, covering the entire sword world. In this sword world, there were mountains, rivers, and everything that a normal world should have. This was formed after Jian Wushuang reached the third level of sword principle and evolved everything. But now, looking at the sword world in front of him, Jian Wushuang's eyes were extremely cold. I have a hunch that my judgment is not wrong. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang made up his mind. In an instant, the entire sword world began to collapse at an astonishing speed. Jian Wushuang had destroyed the sword world that he had painstakingly condensed. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3572. The collapse of the sword world meant that all of Jian Wushuang's previous efforts in sword principle had been in vain. This step was not easily accomplished. Even Jian Wushuang had made a great determination, even with a hint of a gamble. He did not know if his guess was correct, but he knew that his sword principle was indeed too narrow. If he wanted to change this, he had to change his previous understanding of sword principle and start afresh. This was what Jian Wushuang had already done. Sword principle, with the vast universe as its core? Jian Wushuang closed his eyes and began to touch the sword principle in the vast universe. Time continued to pass like flowing water. While Jian Wushuang chose to destroy his sword world and start comprehending the universal sword principle again, in this territory, there was an ordinary Earth star not far from the divine beginning realm. This Earth star had been occupied by someone a long time ago, and the force that occupied it was called the Sacred Island. Sacred Island was built on the foundation of the three saint realms of the divine beginning realm. The cultivators on the Sacred Island were mostly experts who came from the three saint realms. However, because the Sacred Island did not have a ruler realm expert overseeing it, thus the Sacred Island was only a small faction in this territory. It was far inferior to the Star Palace. However, at this moment, in the center of the Sacred Island, in a majestic palace, there were three figures sitting on towering thrones in three different directions. Below them, there was a peak level 6 realm principles master. He was respectfully kneeling there. It must be known that a peak 6th realm principles master could be considered a peak expert even in this territory. Normally, even if he met an expert at the pinnacle of the sixth realm, he would at most lower his stance slightly. However, this peak sixth realm principles master was actually kneeling here. One could imagine how powerful the three people he was kneeling on were. That was right, the three people sitting on the throne were the three rulers. It's been so long. Is there still no news from Heavenly Sword Marquis? An indifferent voice rang out as the tall man in front of him looked down. His eyes were ice cold and contained a faint evil intent. Anyone who saw him would shudder. My lord, there is no news, the peak sixth realm principles master respectfully replied. Facing three genuine rulers, especially knowing their true origins and identities, this principles master did not even dare to breathe loudly. The three of us have already been in this territory for 30,000 years, while Heavenly Sword Marquis has been missing for 20,000 years before we arrived. In that case he has been missing for 50,000 years. From the looks of it, he should already be dead, the tall man said. That should be the case. The evil-looking youth wearing a scarlet cape on the other throne said with a strange smile, I have a certain understanding of this territory, and I also know the existence of the three battlefields in this territory. Those three battlefields should come from the depths of the universe or even the core, and they contain endless dangers. As for the unexplored area in the core of Devil's Smoke Valley, let alone that Heavenly Sword Marquis, even the three of us would die if we were careless. Heavenly Sword Marquis has been trapped in the undiscovered region for 50,000 years. No matter how you look at it, he is definitely dead. Milord, you are right. When Heavenly Sword Marquis entered the undiscovered region of Devil's Smoke Valley and disappeared without a trace, he was already considered dead. However, the Star Palace did not release any news until 30,000 years after he disappeared. The Star Palace finally announced his death. If even the Star Palace thinks so, then Heavenly Sword Marquis should no longer have any chance of survival. The kneeling principles master said. Since we are all going to die for sure, why are the three of us still standing here like idiots? Let's go back. The last of the three rulers, a child-faced, white-haired old man, spoke out. Don't be impatient. The tall man laughed. We spent tens of thousands of years in order to reach this territory. How can we go back in such a hurry? Even if Heavenly Sword Marquis is dead, you have to know that the three battlefields in this territory are indeed a great treasure land. The opportunities contained in them are no small matter. The three of us can spend some time exploring these three battlefields and obtain some opportunities. This won't be a wasted trip. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. Moreover, this matter was ordered by that lord. That lord said that he must kill Heavenly Sword Marquis no matter what. Although he has been missing for 50,000 years and the probability of him dying is over 99%, we haven't really seen his corpse. If we go back like this, it will be very difficult to explain in front of that lord. Therefore it's better to wait. I agree. The devilish youth laughed. The three great battlefields are indeed quite good, and there are many opportunities. The most important thing is that there aren't many people competing against each other. This isn't like the territory we are in. Although there are many places with great opportunities, there are simply too many experts there. How can this place be like this? There are only a few dozen rulers in this entire territory, and all of them are ordinary rulers. Since you think so, then let's wait a little longer. The child-faced, white-haired old man nodded, then he shouted, Right, doesn't that lord have 3 slaves in the divine beginning realm? I need some natural treasures. This is the list. Tell them to collect them quickly and send them to me. Yes. The principal's master was so scared that he nodded immediately. The 3 of them were not rulers of this territory but came from other territories. The reason why they came to this territory was very simple. It was for Jianghu. To be exact, it was for the divine beginning realm. In the divine beginning realm, the 3 saint realms ruled over everything, and behind the 3 saint realms was the heavenly Tao will of the divine beginning realm. In the world-destroying battle countless years ago, the 7-star mysterious sect was destroyed and Xianyi was killed. The reason for that battle was because Xianyi's existence threatened the divine will of the divine beginning realm. After that, the divine will invited many experts from outside the world to destroy the 7-star mysterious sect and kill Xianyi. This time, the 3 rulers in the hall were also invited by the divine will of the divine beginning realm to kill Jianghu. They had arrived here 30,000 years ago, but when they arrived, Jianghu had already entered the unknown region of Devil's Smoke Valley and had been missing for more than 20,000 years. After all, the sacred island was founded on the 3 saint realms, so it had been paying close attention to Jianghu. When Jianghu was traveling in the 3 battlefields under the name of Bloodsword Master and killed Sacred Island's Dragonhawk Master, the Sacred Island had already guessed that Bloodsword Master was Jianghu. Therefore, Sacred Island knew that Jian Wushuang had entered the unexplored area of Devil Smoke Valley and had been missing. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3573. In a flash, Jian Wushuang had lost contact with the outside world for a full 80,000 years. He had also been trapped on the high platform for a full 80,000 years. 30,000 years ago, Jian Wushuang collapsed the sword world on his own and began to re-establish his sword principle with the universe as the core. Because he had many understandings of sword principle before, he was naturally familiar with the way to re-establish his sword principle now. During the past 30,000 years, his sword principle had been improving rapidly and had never stopped. On the high platform, Jian Wushuang opened his eyes and slowly stood up. However, the moment he stood up, an invisible sword essence stretched out and instantly triggered the surrounding universe. Endless sword principle origin surged toward him. He was standing there, but he felt that he had become the core of the sword principle origin. With a thought, the sword principle origin of the universe could be used by him. With a simple action, he could immediately absorb a large amount of the sword principle origin contained in the universe. This feeling is the real sword principle. Jian Wushuang sighed with surprise and joy in his eyes. He had renewed his sword principle and activated the universe sword principle origin. Now that he had finally used the universe sword principle origin, his sword principle had reached a new level. If I'm not wrong, Di Shisan's sword principle level should also be at this step, Jian Wushuang muttered. Di Shisan was an amazing genius in sword principle. His sword principle was the strongest in the divine beginning realm since ancient times. Even though he was only a principle's master, his level of sword principle was beyond the reach of many rulers. Although Jian Wushuang could not really compare with Di Shisan, he felt that his current grasp of sword principle should not be much weaker than Di Shisan's. I'm very curious about how much my swordsmanship will improve after reaching this step. Jian Wushuang slowly extended his right hand with a hint of expectation. He did not use a sword nor did he display swordsmanship. He just casually slashed with his right index finger. This slash instantly activated the origin of sword principle in the universe. For a moment, the space was almost cut open. Wow, when I activated the sword principle origin of the universe, the power of my sword suddenly increased by dozens of times. It's so terrifying. Jian Wushuang exclaimed. Previously, when he had reached the third level of sword principle and evolved everything, the power of his swordsmanship could also be increased with the support of sword principle. However, the increase in power was very limited. It was already incredible to be able to increase the power by 1 or 2 times. But now, with a casual move of his sword, the power of the origin of sword principle in the universe was instantly increased by dozens of times. This increase was too great. Now I understand why Di Shisan was able to cut off the arm of a ruler, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. With the comprehension of sword principle at this stage, the power of each move was extremely powerful. For example, now, even with a casual move of his sword, the power of this move would still be no weaker than a level 6 absolute art. Once he displayed his sword skill and activated the sword principle origin of the universe, the power of his sword skill would be even more terrifying. Moreover, his understanding of sword principle was so high that it had already surpassed most of the Master Realm experts. At this stage he could completely create a level 7 absolute art, which was an absolute art at the Master Realm. Once he created a level 7 absolute art and activated the sword principle origin of the universe, the power would be too terrifying. I was absolutely confident that I had some talent in sword principle, but I wasn't confident that I could compete with Di Shisan. I didn't expect that I could really catch up with Di Shisan in the blink of an eye. Jian Wushuang's face was full of surprise and joy. However, he also understood that the reason why he was able to achieve this step was because of his extraordinary perception and comprehension. Another point was the human-shaped statue array in front of him. The combination of the human-shaped statues in the array and their swordsmanship made Jian Wushuang realize the shortcomings of his sword principle and allowed him to find a flaw. He also saw a brand new sword principle. Of course, the most important point was Jian Wushuang's decisiveness and boldness. After all, he had destroyed his sword world on his own and then recultivated his sword principle. Visit Readle.me for extra chapters. This process was not something that an ordinary person could do. After all, it was not easy to cultivate a sword principle to this point. Who would be willing to destroy it on their own? Who would be willing to recultivate it? Even if they knew that they had made a mistake, after all, they had put in so much effort. No one would be willing to reject everything and recultivate it, let alone Jian Wushuang, who only relied on his own comprehension with some conjectures. He decisively broke down the sword world and then relearned his sword principle. Such decisiveness and boldness were not something that ordinary people could have. Jian Wushuang had done it, and he had made the right bet. After relearning his sword principle for 30,000 years, his sword principle had reached a new level, which was far above the sword principle he had comprehended before. Although I have taken this step, I don't know what level it is. Jian Wushuang smiled. However, in the divine beginning realm, sword principle was divided into 3 levels. Although the sword principle I have mastered now is not the same as the 3 levels, it is still considered the 4th level of sword principle. The 4th level of sword principle was beyond the realm of principles masters. Jian Wushuang had reached the level of sword principle that even many master realm experts could not reach. I've reached the 4th level of sword principle. I wonder what will happen if I try to break through this human-shaped sculpture array again. Jian Wushuang licked his lips, looked at the human-shaped sculptures in front of him, and took out his shadow-killing sword. Then he walked forward step by step. Soon Jian Wushuang fought with the human-shaped sculptures again. This time, because he had reached the 4th level of sword principle, his swordsmanship was completely different. While Jian Wushuang was fighting with the human-shaped sculptures, the consciousness in the deepest part of this special spacetime awakened again. This time, when he woke up and sensed what was happening on the high platform, the consciousness was completely shocked. Sword. Universe origin of sword principle? This kid has activated the universe origin of sword principle? He has reached the first step of the universe origin of sword principle. The consciousness was completely shocked. After all, 80,000 years ago, when Jian Wushuang first came to this special spacetime and was trapped on the high platform, the sword principle that he displayed was extremely laughable to him. But now, if you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3574. Unbelievable to activate the universe origin of sword principle and take the first step into the universe origin of sword principle. In just 80,000 years, this rate of improvement was too frightening. The key is that he is only an immortal saint? Even though this consciousness was knowledgeable at this moment, a huge wave was stirred up in his heart. It took a deep breath before it shouted again, "Third brother, wake up. Fourth brother, what's wrong now?" The second consciousness that had previously awakened and conversed with this consciousness also woke up. It's still for that little fellow trapped in the 18 ultimate formation. The first consciousness laughed. I already said that that little fellow was destined to die from the moment he stepped into the 18 ultimate formation. What's there to say? It's a waste of time. The second consciousness said with some dissatisfaction. Doomed to die? I don't think so, the first consciousness said with a demonic charm. Third brother, take a good look at the little guy in the 18 ultimate formation and see what level he has reached. Oh. The second consciousness could not help but be surprised. Although he had woken up, he did not immediately grasp the situation of this special spacetime. Now that he heard the first consciousness words, he subconsciously looked at the high platform. Immediately he saw the scene on the high platform. He saw Jian Wushuang walking on the high platform. There were still 6 human-shaped sculptures in front of him. When these 6 human-shaped sculptures joined hands, they were extremely powerful. Previously, even if Jian Wushuang tried his best, he was still completely suppressed by these 6 human-shaped sculptures. But now, Jian Wushuang looked relaxed and content. He casually drew his sword and did not display any extraordinary sword skills, but he could easily block the sword skills of the 6 human-shaped sculptures. Each of his casual moves triggered the universe origin of sword principle, making his swordsmanship even more terrifying. This is. After seeing the scene on the high platform, the second consciousness was stunned, but then became excited. The universe origin of sword principle. Yes, it's the universe origin of sword principle. Haha, yes, it's the universe origin of sword principle. He has already taken the first step of the universe origin of sword principle. Now you dare to say that he can't break through the 18 ultimate formation and is doomed to die? The first consciousness laughed. How is this possible? The second consciousness was still filled with shock. A mere immortal saint can actually take such a step in Sword Dao? Moreover, when he first came to this spacetime 80,000 years ago, he didn't come into contact with this level at all. He even took the wrong step in Sword Dao. However, in a short span of 80,000 years, he has already taken this step? I also find it unbelievable. The first consciousness said, even though I spent most of my time sleeping, I still pay attention to this little guy. I can be sure that when he entered this spacetime he didn't even know what the Sword Dao universe origin was, and he was trapped here the entire time. There was no one to guide him. He relied purely on his own trial and error, and in just a short 80,000 years he actually reached this step. Thanks. I know that there are some incredible geniuses in this vast universe. All of them are incomparably heaven-defying. For example, the two geniuses who passed through the 18 absolute formations were extremely heaven-defying. However, one of them was a principles master while the other was a ruler. In terms of talent, they probably can't compare to that little fellow trapped within the 18 absolute formations. Indeed, he did not receive any guidance. He only relied on his own exploration. The second consciousness sighed. If Jian Wushuang had reached this stage under the guidance of an expert, they would still be able to accept it. After all, the most important step to step into the origin of the sword universe was to first come into contact with the origin of the sword universe. If there was no guidance, ordinary people would not know what the origin of the sword universe was, so how could they come into contact with it? However, Jian Wushuang really did not have anyone to guide him. He just relied on his own trial and error, relying on his comprehension on the way to battle with those human-shaped sculptures to find his sword principles' inadequacies. Then he decisively collapsed the sword world and began to recultivate sword principle. This ability was indeed incredible. The first step in his Tao of the Sword to enter the origin of the sword universe means that his understanding of the Tao of the Sword is already higher than that of an ordinary ruler. His understanding of the Tao of the Sword is so high that even if he hasn't fused 4 laws to become a ruler, he can still easily create a level 7 absolute art, or even an advanced level 7 absolute art. Once he creates an advanced level 7 absolute art, the 18 absolute formations won't be able to stop him, the first consciousness said. Well, with such a high understanding of sword principle, it is indeed easy to create a level 7 absolute art. The second consciousness nodded. Seeing that Jian Wushuang had already taken the first step into the origin of the sword universe, the two consciousnesses understood that it was difficult for Jian Wushuang to break through the 18 ultimate formations. Now they were both looking forward to Jian Wushuang creating a level 7 advanced absolute art and then breaking through the 18 ultimate formations. For this reason they even stopped sleeping temporarily and stayed awake, keeping an eye on Jian Wushuang. On the high platform, Jian Wushuang had already defeated the 6 human-shaped sculptures. It was normal. After reaching the 4th level of sword principle, each of his sword skills was extremely powerful. Even if he did not use any extraordinary sword skills, he could easily defeat the 6 human-shaped sculptures. Once he used his strongest technique, he could easily crush the 6 sculptures. However, after he defeated the 6 sculptures, the remaining 12 sculptures around the platform woke up at the same time. Together with the previous 6 sculptures, a total of 18 sculptures attacked at the same time. Although the absolute arts performed by the 18 human-shaped sculptures were only at the pinnacle of the 6th realm, the swordsmanship performed by the 18 human-shaped sculptures was as powerful as the previous 6 human-shaped sculptures. It had completely reached the peak of the 7th level elementary absolute arts. Jian Wushuang could not withstand such power, so he was defeated and retreated to the center of the platform again. However, Jian Wushuang was not at all disappointed this time. On the contrary, he was full of confidence. Fortunately, the swordsmanship power of these 18 human-shaped sculptures is only at the level of the 7th level absolute skill. At most, it is at the peak of the 7th level elementary skill. Although I can't fight against this level of absolute skill now, I have reached the 4th level of sword principle. It should not be difficult for me to create a 7th level absolute skill now. As long as I can create the same level of the 7th level elementary skill, I can fight these 18 human-shaped sculptures head-on. And once I've created a 7th level art, I can easily break out of this array. Chapter 3575. Level 7 Secret Skill. The level 7 secret skill was not too difficult for him now. Even if it was a level 7 advanced secret skill, he could create it if he needed time. Fortunately, the human-shaped sculpture array had a time limit of 10 million years, and only 80,000 years had passed since he was trapped here. He had plenty of time. Jian Wushuang immediately sat down cross-legged. In terms of swordsmanship, I created the move Starfire Burning Sun after tens of thousands of years of evolution. Although this move is only the strongest level 6 ultimate skill, with my current understanding of sword principle, I can completely improve this move and upgrade it to level 7. Not only can I improve Starfire Burning Sun, but I can also improve my swordsmanship, which is at the peak of level 6, such as Till Death Do Us Part, Purple Charm and Sword Rainbow. I can also improve the 7 sword moves in the Peerless Sword Manual. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Soon he closed his eyes and began to study it. Just as Jian Wushuang had expected, with her current understanding of sword principle, It was too easy for her to improve the swordsmanship that she had created before. It did not take long. For example, it only took him more than 1,000 years to upgrade Starfire Burning Sun to the level of an elementary level 7 skill. However, it was obviously not enough to meet his requirements. Time passed, and another 17,000 years passed in a flash. 17,000 years, plus the previous 80,000 years, Jian Wushuang had been trapped there for 97,000 years. On this day, Jian Wushuang suddenly opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, a shocking sword essence swept out. This sword essence was extremely powerful. Fortunately, he was in this special space-time. There were no cultivators around. If there were cultivators in the outside world, ordinary principles masters would definitely be scared to death by this sword essence. Haha, it's done. Jian Wushuang also revealed a surprised smile. After spending 17,000 years to improve his swordsmanship finally met his requirements. The 3 sword techniques of Till Death Do Us Part, Purple Charm and Sword Rainbow have all been upgraded to the level of an elementary level 7 absolute art, and they are all at the peak of the elementary level 7. In the Wushuang Sword Manual, I've also upgraded to the peak of the initial stage of the 7th rank for the 2 common sword techniques, Shixiang and Star Dream. As for the remaining 5 sword techniques, they are all at the threshold of the 7th rank. And most importantly, this move, Starfire Burning Sun. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands tightly. After all, Starfire Burning Sun was the 6th rank ultimate skill that he had spent tens of thousands of years to create. Previously, its level was much higher than the other sword techniques that he had created. But in these 17,000 years, he had spent a lot of time on improving this sword skill. Until now, this sword skill had finally reached the level of the 7th level advanced ultimate skill. In Jian Wushuang's opinion, the 7th level advanced skill was enough for him to pass through the human-shaped sculpture array. Let's try it. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate and directly began to pass through the human-shaped sculpture array. As he stood up and walked toward the human-shaped sculptures, the 2 consciousnesses that had been watching Jian Wushuang in the deepest part of the space-time immediately perked up. He has been sitting there for 17,000 years. He must be creating swordsmanship. Now that he is getting ready to break through the 18 ultimate formation, he must have created his swordsmanship, the first consciousness said. Yes. He has fought with the 18 human-shaped sculptures at the same time. He knows the power of the sword technique formed by the combination of these 18 human-shaped sculptures. Now that he has come to challenge the formation again, it means that he has the confidence to challenge it, the second consciousness said with a smile. It seems that Master's lineage will have another amazing little guy. Haha, this little fellow is indeed remarkable. At the very least, he is much more powerful than the 2 of us. The first consciousness laughed as well. Such a rare moment can not only be seen by the 2 of us. The second consciousness smiled faintly. Following that, a magnificent voice reverberated in the deepest part of the special space-time. 2nd, 5th, and 7th, the 3 of you should also wake up. This voice was not only majestic, but it also contained an invisible power. This power spread out like a wave board, instantly awakening the other 3 consciousnesses that were sleeping in this special spacetime. Third brother, what's the matter? Third brother, you should know my current situation. If there isn't anything urgent, don't disturb me. Different voices came from 2 different directions. The 5 of them were in different corners of this special spacetime, but their consciousnesses had already gathered together. I know your situation, but don't worry. I won't take too long to wake you up, and I won't let you use your strength. I just want you to see the little guy in the 18 ultimate formation. The second consciousness said it was the 3rd one. In the 18 ultimate formation? The other 3 consciousnesses had just woken up, and they had not paid enough attention to what was happening in this special space and time. Therefore, they did not know about Jian Wushuang's existence until their consciousnesses covered it. They finally understood why the 3rd one woke them up. Immortal Saint? An immortal saint actually created a level 7 absolute art? My God, his swordsmanship has triggered the universe origin of sword principle? He has actually stepped into the first step of the universe origin of sword principle? A level 7 absolute art is a level 7 absolute art, and it's not just one. He created many types of level 7 absolute arts at the same time. This little guy is really amazing. The newly awakened 3 consciousnesses were all extremely shocked when they saw Jian Wushuang's performance on the high platform. Ladies and gentlemen, there is one more thing I have to tell you. This little guy has only been in this special space and time for 97,000 years. He has only been trapped in the 18 ultimate formation for so long. When he first came here, his sword principle was still very immature and laughable. He even took the wrong path in his sword principle. However, it only took him 97,000 years to reach this step. If nothing goes wrong, he will be able to break through the 18 ultimate formations soon, third brother said. Unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. He has been trapped for less than 100,000 years, and his sword Dao was very laughable at the beginning. This little guy is really a monster. Haha, I didn't expect that we would meet such an incredible monster even though we have been reduced to this barren land. He has broken through the 18 ultimate formations at the level of a saint. Even in the deepest part of the universe where geniuses are as common as clouds, there is no such thing, right? The 5 consciousnesses were both amazed and excited. Chapter 3576. Golden War God Jian Wushuang was too amazing. If Jian Wushuang was a ruler or a principal's master, they would not be so excited and incredulous even though they were amazed that he had passed the 18 ultimate formation. However, Jian Wushuang was just an immortal saint. Even in the deepest part of the universe where geniuses gathered, no immortal saint could pass the 18 ultimate formation. Well, he passed it. The third brother smiled. Sure enough, after his sword principle has reached this level, the 18 ultimate formation is no longer difficult for him. The first consciousness, the fourth brother, said. Is that the 7th level advanced absolute art he created? It looks pretty good. Haha, Master's lineage has another amazing little guy. The other 3 consciousnesses were also laughing. Suddenly, one of the consciousnesses said seriously, after passing the 18 ultimate formations, logically, we should send someone to come in contact with him and tell him the significance of this test. However, the 3 of us are too weak. Even if we awaken our consciousnesses, it will be very difficult, let alone going to see that little guy. Third brother, fourth brother, the 2 of you are in better condition. One of you should go. They'll pass. Fourth brother, go and make a trip, the third brother said. Leave it to me. The fourth brother, who was the first one among the 5 to pay attention to Jian Wushuang's consciousness, was in the best condition. It was because of this that he had the time to pay attention to Jian Wushuang. Now, he had to make contact with Jian Wushuang. Naturally, he was also the best choice. In the deepest corner of this special space-time. Rumble. The space-time began to tremble crazily. It was pitch black and there was not a trace of light in the void. Suddenly, a pair of huge, narrow golden eyes opened. There was a trace of ice-cold luster in the pair of golden eyes. I've been asleep for too long. My body is almost rusty. A loud voice sounded from the pitch-black void. The owner of the golden eyes slowly stood up. At the moment he stood up, a large amount of golden light surged out from his body. The golden light was extremely dazzling. It directly lit up the entire void. After stretching his back, the golden figure directly stepped into the void in front of him. At this moment, Jian Wushuang had just broken through the array of the 18 human-shaped sculptures. Finally, I'm out. Jian Wushuang stood in the gray void and looked at the high platform in front of him. Just now, when he directly attacked and forced his way through, the 18 human-shaped sculptures tried their best to stop him. Unfortunately, Jian Wushuang had created a level 7 absolute art, and with his comprehension of sword principle, he was able to face the 18 human-shaped sculptures head-on. He was not inferior at all. When he was fighting with these human-shaped sculptures, he had even deliberately displayed all of his sword skills. Through these human-shaped sculptures, he tested the power of his sword skills. After all the trials were over, only then did he really make his move. He directly used Starfire Burning Sun, an absolute art that had already reached the advanced level of level 7, and defeated the 18 puppet fighters head-on. The 18 human-shaped statues on the high platform were still there, but they had fallen into a deep sleep. In the center of the high platform, the corpse of the Star Thunder ruler was still intact. This scene made a strange smile appear on Jian Wushuang's face. Star Thunder ruler, although you had the intention to scheme against me, it's a pity that I didn't die on the high platform as you wished. Moreover, the years I've been trapped on the high platform have been a great opportunity for me, which has made my sword principle an incredible improvement. And the Shadow Demon Thunderstaff and Blood Demon Cave Armor you left behind are also precious treasures for me. I really have to thank you for having such a great harvest, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. The reason why he was trapped on the high platform this time was partly because of the Star Thunder ruler. Before the Star Thunder ruler died, he deliberately set a trap in order to let others follow in his footsteps. Unfortunately, Jian Wushuang did not do as he wished. On the contrary, he had obtained a great opportunity. I have passed the test in the high platform, but I still don't know anything about this special space-time. Jian Wushuang frowned. At this moment, haha. A hearty laughter suddenly echoed in the space-time. Who is it? Jian Wushuang's expression suddenly changed, and he immediately looked toward the source of the voice. A golden light slowly lit up from the deepest part of the void. As the golden light got closer and closer, the light became more and more dazzling. When it reached Jian Wushuang, the golden light was still like a huge golden sun, illuminating the entire space and time. Jian Wushuang immediately saw the origin of the golden light. This golden light was a tall cultivator. He was hundreds of feet tall, wearing golden armor, boots, and a golden puppet fighter on his head. He also held a golden spear in his hand, making him look like a golden war god. When he came to Jian Wushuang and stood firmly in front of him, although he did not emit any aura, the moment Jian Wushuang saw him, he immediately felt a chill run down his spine. Yes, it was a chill down his spine. All the pores on his body had stood up. He was scared. He's too strong. This man is too strong. Jian Wushuang's body was trembling crazily. He had seen many experts, including the Temporal Temple Master and the Heaven Ancestor. Although these two experts were extremely powerful, he had seen and come into contact with them. Jian Wushuang was in awe of them, but he was not afraid of them. But now, the golden war god in front of him, even though he did not exude any aura or power, Jian Wushuang was terrified just by standing there. He did not know what was going on. He could only say that it was an invisible pressure that made him lose the courage to resist. Jian Wushuang knew that the man in front of him was definitely a world-shaking super expert. He might even have surpassed the level of a ruler. Jian Wushuang did not know what level he would reach after he surpassed the level of a ruler, but he knew that it was beyond his reach. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang suppressed the fear in his heart and bowed respectfully to the man. Jian Wushuang, greetings, Your Excellency. Jian Wushuang? Is that your name? The golden war god gazed at Jian Wushuang with his narrow golden eyes, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. Chapter 3577. Supreme Lingyun. Little guy, let me introduce myself first. I'm from planet Lingyun, and I'm Wind Demon, the fourth among the 7 devils under planet Lingyun. The golden war god said grandly, my master is the star master of planet Lingyun, Supreme Lingyun. Planet Lingyun? Supreme Lingyun? Jian Wushuang was shocked. In his eyes, this golden war god was terrifyingly powerful. He did not expect that he had a master behind him. Supreme? Above the ruler realm is the supreme realm? Jian Wushuang could not help but ask. Yes, above the ruler realm is the supreme realm. The golden war god smiled faintly. Among them, the ruler realm cultivators are indeed top experts in some barren places in the universe. However, in the deepest part of the universe they are nothing. Unless they are some of the top rulers, they can be considered as a figure in the deepest part of the universe. In the deepest part of the universe, the supreme realm is the expert who stands at the top of the pyramid. Is that so? Jian Wushuang was shocked, but he quickly calmed down. He looked at the golden war god in surprise. If I'm not wrong, you're also a supreme being, aren't you? Yes, I'm also a supreme being. The golden war god nodded. I'm not the only one. The other 6 demons who are as famous as me are also experts at the supreme realm. Although they are also supreme beings, there are still differences in strength. For example, as one of the 7 demons of Lingyun Star, my strength is extremely strong even among supreme beings. However, even if we join hands, we are still nothing in front of my master. He had reached the top of the supreme realm many years ago. Later, he became even more powerful and became invincible among the supreme beings. Even in the deepest part of the universe, where there are as many experts as clouds, my master is definitely an overlord. With a stomp of his foot, the entire universe will tremble. As for a supreme being like me, he can destroy it with a wave of his hand. Hearing the golden war god's words, Jian Wushuang was secretly shocked. The golden war god in front of him was a super existence that terrified him. How could he be annihilated with a wave of his hand in front of his master, Star Master Lingyun? It was obvious how powerful Star Master Lingyun was. Little guy, I'm not telling you this for other reasons. I just want to tell you that the special space you're in now was left behind by my master. The 18 ultimate formation you just passed on the high platform was also a test left behind by my master. According to the rules of planet Lingyun, anyone who can pass the 18 ultimate formation can become a disciple of planet Lingyun. He or she is an inner star disciple, and his or her status is no lower than mine. The golden war god stared at Jian Wushuang with his golden eyes. Become a disciple of planet Lingyun? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He was not too surprised. He was very clear about the difficulty of the 18 ultimate formations. It could be said that he was indeed heaven-defying. If it were any other cultivator, it was simply impossible for him to create an advanced level 7 skill at the level of an immortal saint. With the tyrannical strength and status of the Star Master of planet Lingyun, It was impossible for him to set up such a difficult test for no reason. It was very likely that the test was to select disciples for planet Lingyun. The Golden War God had not shown up when Jian Wushuang was trapped in the 18 Ultimate Formation. He only told him this when Jian Wushuang passed the test. Little guy, I ask you, do you want to join planet Lingyun and become an inner disciple of planet Lingyun? The Golden War God asked seriously. Well, Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and did not answer immediately. Instead he asked, Lord Wind Demon, you mentioned just now that Star Master Lingyun is an extraordinary supreme being. Even in the deepest part of the universe he is an overlord. But if I'm not wrong, it must have been many years ago, right? Jian Wushuang was not stupid. If Star Master Lingyun had always been like that, how could this special space-time come to this territory? Moreover, it had existed in the deepest unexplored area of Devil Smoke Valley for so many years. You're right. What I just said was a long time ago. It has been more than 100 chaos cycles since then, the Golden War God said. More than 100 chaos cycles? Jian Wushuang was shocked. He knew that it was only one chaos cycle when a grade 3 Earth star was born and completely annihilated. What was the concept of hundreds of chaos cycles? Jian Wushuang could not even calculate how many years it had been. At that time, our planet Lingyun was indeed an overlord in the deepest part of the universe. My master's strength was enough to intimidate countless experts. However, there was an accident that led to a great change in our planet Lingyun. Our experts died and were injured. Many people escaped from the depths of the universe and fled to every corner of the universe. For example, I fled here with this space-time. Because of my heavy injuries, I have been sleeping for a long time. This time, I woke up because of you, the Golden War God said, his expression darkened. However, he continued, even though that incident caused planet Lingyun to be on the verge of collapse, there are still many experts from the Lingyun lineage scattered throughout the universe. There's also Master. Master, although he was heavily injured in that battle, I know that he didn't die. His strength has reached his level. It's too difficult for anyone in this universe to kill him. As long as Master doesn't die, planet Lingyun will have a chance to rise again. My brothers and I are waiting here quietly. We will recover our strength and return to the deepest part of the universe when Master gives the order. So, don't underestimate planet Lingyun. Jian Wushuang was speechless. He did not mean to underestimate planet Lingyun. He just wanted to have a deeper understanding of planet Lingyun. But now he understood almost everything. Planet Lingyun used to be an overlord in the deepest part of the universe. However, hundreds of chaos cycles ago, the entire planet collapsed and countless experts fled in all directions. However, Star Master Lingyun did not die. It was entirely possible for planet Lingyun to rise again. Little fellow, I've said so much. I've told you everything you need to know. Now you can answer me. Are you willing to join our Lingyun lineage or not? The Golden War God said. Chapter 3578, Internal Star Secret Skill, I do. Jian Wushuang agreed without hesitation. In fact, Jian Wushuang had nothing to refuse. He had never been to the deepest part of the universe, nor had he had much contact with it. The only contact he had was with Blood Wave, and through Blood Wave, he knew about the existence of the Palace of Life. However, the Palace of Life was formed by the special life forms in the universe. Since he was one of the special life forms, he was naturally part of the Palace of Life. Because of the special relationship of the Palace of Life, he could freely join the other major forces in the depths of the universe. Although planet Lingyun had undergone drastic changes, it used to be an overlord in the deepest part of the universe. There seemed to be many experts at the supreme level. Such a major force. Usually it was difficult for many experts to join. Now that Jian Wushuang had the opportunity, there was no need to refuse. After all, with another identity, if he went to the deepest part of the universe in the future, he would have more to rely on. Very good. Seeing Jian Wushuang agree, the Golden War God also smiled. Little guy, you're very lucky. If previously, when planet Lingyun was at its peak, countless geniuses tried to join our planet Lingyun, but we didn't bother with them. It's a great fortune for you to be a disciple of our planet Lingyun. Lord Wind Demon, since it's a good fortune as an inner star disciple of the planet Lingyun, I should be able to get some benefits, right? Jian Wushuang asked directly. Of course. The Golden War God smiled. But our planet Lingyun suffered heavy losses in the accident, and its foundation has been almost destroyed. Now, in this barren territory, I can't give you the same treatment as an inner star disciple. At most, I can only let you choose an inner star secret skill. Inner star secret skill? Is it a secret skill that only inner star disciples of planet Lingyun are qualified to cultivate? Jian Wushuang looked over. Yes, and not every inner star disciple is qualified to cultivate it. Only a few outstanding inner star disciples who win the competition every once in a while are qualified to choose an inner star secret skill. This time, because of the current environment, I can't give you the treatment you deserve as an inner star disciple, so I made an exception and let you choose an inner star secret skill. In addition, there are 9 internal star secret skills in our planet Lingyun. Each of them is extremely powerful, enough to make countless rulers and even supreme beings yearn for them. However, because of the accident, the cultivation methods of these 9 internal star secret skills are available to different experts under my command. I only have 2 internal star secret skills. You can choose one of these 2 internal star secret skills, the Golden War God said. With a wave of his hand, 2 golden stone tablets appeared in front of Jianghu. It was obvious that these 2 golden stone tablets were the cultivation methods of the inner star secret skill. Obviously, the protection of the inner star secret skill in planet Lingyun was very strict. The secret skill could only be taught by these golden stone tablets. In other places, even if the other party had already mastered one of the inner star secret skills, but this person could not teach this secret skill to others. Only 2 inner star secret skills? Jianghu frowned. He said, "Sir, according to what you said, because I can't get the treatment that an ordinary inner star disciple should have, you made an exception and let me choose 1 inner star secret skill. But you only have 2 inner star secret skills to choose for me. This is still a little unfair to me. Otherwise, you might as well let me cultivate both of these secret skills." Jianghu was not willing to cultivate only 1 internal star secret skill. He wanted to cultivate 2 at the same time. After all, according to Wind Demon, countless rulers, including many supreme-level experts, yearn to cultivate the 9 internal star secret skills that originated from the planet Lingyun at its peak. Naturally, Jianghu also yearned for it. It would be best if he could cultivate 2 such secret skills at the same time. But after hearing his words, the Golden War God directly shook his head. "Don't even think about it. You don't even know the value of these inner star secret techniques and their strength. This inner star secret technique is definitely much more precious than the treatment that all your inner star disciples can receive. I've already opened a back door for you by letting you choose 1 inner star secret technique, but you actually want to cultivate a second one? Do you think the internal star secret skill of Lingyun Star is like cabbages everywhere?" "I see." Jianghu curled his lips and did not insist. "Let me take a look at these 2 secret skills first." "Okay." The Golden War God nodded and then revealed some of the information on the golden stone tablet to Jianghu. Jianghu immediately knew the secret skills on the 2 golden stone tablets. One of the 2 inner star gates was a special secret skill for the circulation of divine power. Once one mastered this secret skill, his divine power could be instantly increased by several times, or even dozens of times. To the peak it could even reach hundreds of times. Of course, the flaw was that this secret skill consumed a lot of divine power, and it could not be used together with other secret skills that also increased divine power. Most importantly, the threshold of this secret skill was very high. Under normal circumstances, only great beings who had reached the ruler realm were qualified to practice it. As for the other internal star secret technique, it was a secret technique related to godly bodies. It was called the Supreme Undying Mysterious Body. This secret technique was used to shape and refine godly bodies. It could make one's godly body incomparably tough and powerful, and it could directly reach the level of a universe true treasure. Besides, this secret technique could be practiced at the level of a principal's master. But the flaw was, when cultivating this secret skill, it required the assistance of some extremely high-level genius earthly treasures, which were very difficult to find. These 2 secret skills were placed in front of Jianghu at the same time, but Jianghu chose the second one decisively. Although the special divine power circulation secret skill can increase a cultivator's divine power and strength, it can only be cultivated by an expert at the ruler realm. Although I'm a perfect chaotic creature with some special features, I can't cultivate it at the immortal saint realm. Even if I break through to the principal's master realm in the future, I may not be qualified to cultivate this secret skill. I don't have so much time to reach the ruler realm. Besides, who knows if he'll have the chance to become a ruler in the future. Jianghu laughed in his heart. A ruler? There were so many astral worlds in this territory, but there were only so many experts at the ruler realm. There were only a few in the divine beginning realm, so it was extremely difficult to reach that level. Although Jianghu had great potential, he did not dare to say that he would definitely be able to break through to become a ruler. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.